Ever since I was a child, my mother hammered it into me that the sea is teeming with fish. If they dare to cheat you, simply swap them out for a fresh catch. So when I caught my girlfriend of 3 years, tenderly shielding another guy from the torrential rain, at the exact moment he thought he was playing it perfectly, I didn't utter a single word. I just calmly captured the proof. I leaked the footage of her and that underclassman locked in a rainy embrace across every corner of Jin University. The moment the scandal broke, the flood of notifications from our mutual friends instantly detonated across my screen. I can't blame them for losing their minds like this. When all is said and done, the entire campus knew just how pathetically obsessed Xiao Jiajia used to be with me. She relentlessly pursued me for 2.5 grueling years. Only after 88 desperate attempts to win my heart did I finally cave and give her a chance. Staring at the feed, I realized that the absolute devotion she once swore to me had been ruthlessly torn in two. One half remained alive for me, while the other was secretly surrendered to someone else. I didn't bother with the confrontation, and I certainly wasn't going to lower myself to some chase her back melodrama. I simply deactivated every single social media account in silence, hauled my bags together, and walked out of our life without a second glance. At the crack of dawn the next day, Xiao Jiajia was jolted awake by a call from her best friend. Xiao Jiajia, have you completely lost your mind? Hearing those words, Xiao Jiajia froze her mind momentarily blank. But her friend refused to give her a second to breathe, and began ruthlessly tearing into her. What the hell is wrong with you? You had a golden man and you didn't think he was worth cherishing. Instead, you're out here trashing your reputation with some random guy. What did he ever do to deserve this betrayal from you? How could you be so utterly revolting? After getting scorched by her best friend's fury, Xiao Jiajia finally grasped the gravity of the situation. She bolted upright, her heart racing. What are you talking about? Explain yourself right now. I'm asking you, where the hell are you hiding? Just as Xiao Jiajia opened her mouth to snap back, the realization hit her that she was still at the hospital with Lu Li. The excuses died in her throat. Her friend clearly sensed the guilty silence, sending her rage into overdrive. You're still at the hospital. Playing nurse for that Lu Li kid, aren't you? Don't you ever check the campus forum? Scandalous photos and videos of you two are plastered literally everywhere. Upon hearing this, Xiao Jiajia felt like her mind was about to detonate. It suddenly dawned on her that she actually had a date last night. But after rushing Lu Li to the emergency room, she got distracted and completely blanked on her commitment. What's the deal with him? Did he actually wait for me at the bakery all night? Most critically, how would he react once he laid eyes on those photos? She frantically terminated the call, only to see a mountain of missed calls. And every single notification was from me. In that heartbeat, Xiao Jiajia felt a searing pang in her chest and instinctively clutched her heart. She desperately pulled up our chat history, and after seeing my message pleading to meet, she scrambled to call me and explain everything. But at that exact moment, her hand was seized by Lu Li, who was lingering nearby. Jiajia, can't you just stay here and keep me company? Xiao Jiajia didn't utter a word, and coldly pried Lu Li's fingers off her skin. Her logic screamed at her that if she failed to appear at the rendezvous, at the precise time I demanded, my fury would be absolute. Be that as it may, recalling how I once hauled her through a raging fire on my back, her frantic heart gradually began to steady. Impossible, he worships me. He literally risked his life in a blaze for my sake. There's no way he'd abandon me over something this trivial. Time bled away second by agonizing second. I stared intensely at the vacant seat across from me. 10 minutes crawled by, then another 10. Xiao Jiajia was still a complete no-show. By now, the deadline we had agreed upon had already expired an hour ago. I felt a hollow sense of disappointment, though I wasn't entirely shocked. I originally intended to end things face to face, but unfortunately, some people don't deserve a clean break. With that thought, I looked down and unleashed the drafted bombshell to my social feed. A few mere minutes later, the Jin University campus forum erupted into total chaos once again, all because someone managed to screenshot my latest social media update. The caption was devastatingly simple, happily single. The campus forum ignited with a fresh wave of chaotic excitement. I bypassed the drama and headed straight for the airport terminal. The moment I arrived, I instructed the driver to return the car to the family villa. After briefly informing Auntie Zhao of my departure, I powered down my phone and boarded my flight to a new life. 3 hours after I ascended into the clouds, Xiao Jiajia finally emerged from the hospital. However, she was utterly blindsided to see the viral news of my official breakup announcement. She clicked on my profile in sheer disbelief, only to be met with a cold, empty horizontal line. Xiao Jiajia froze in her tracks, paralyzed. A sickening realization washed over her had I blocked her, or simply erased her from my life entirely. Consumed by panic, she redialed my number incessantly, but on the other end of the line, only a cold, mechanical recording echoed back at her. Xiao Jiajia was still oblivious to the sheer magnitude of the disaster she had ignited. She only knew that the second she lost her connection to me, her entire reality began to spiral out of control. Suddenly, the world around her was stripped of its color. Clinging to one final desperate shred of hope, she raced to the exact location I had sent her earlier. Xiao Jiajia scanned the crowd with frantic, wild eyes, hoping against hope to catch even a glimpse of me. But the tides of strangers surged past her, and I had completely vanished from the face of the earth. This cafe was the very one Xiao Jiajia had opened as a tribute to me. It was our sanctuary, our most cherished date spot. As she surveyed the familiar decor, it felt as though every single table was a ghost of our past, haunted by echoes of our laughter and the smiles we once shared. But in a brutal heartbeat, the fragile illusion shattered into pieces. Xiao Jiajia cornered a staff member, struggling to maintain her composure while asking where I had gone. Young Master Shen waited right here for 2 hours before departing. He didn't even touch a single drink. Tell me, exactly when did he walk out? Let me see. It must have been around 10:30. Tracing the timeline of her betrayal, Xiao Jiajia stared down at her glowing screen. The timestamp on the message confirmed we were supposed to rendezvous at 9:30 sharp, but by now it was already 2 o'clock p.m. After I arrived precisely at the scheduled hour, I had endured waiting for her for a full 60 minutes. What was racing through my mind during that agonizing hour? What kind of cold, hard resolve did I have to forge to ensure that, while I sat there and she never appeared, I didn't make even the slightest effort to reach out to her? She refused to face it. But in this shattering moment, Xiao Jiajia's arrogant sense of security was utterly decimated. The realization finally dawned on her. This time I was truly irrevocably done. Was this really happening? Because I had discarded her like yesterday's trash. The instant that terrifying thought surfaced, Xiao Jiajia's eyes brimmed with stinging tears, and her hands began to tremble with uncontrollable violence. She retreated to her car like a hollowed-out corpse, her shaking fingers obsessively redialing my unreachable number. God knows how many hours bled into the next, but then Xiao Jiajia's backup phone on the passenger seat erupted into a frantic vibration. It had to be Lu Li, desperate enough to call her burner, since he couldn't get through to her primary line. Nevertheless, Xiao Jiajia had absolutely zero intention of entertaining him. Her chest felt constricted by an iron band. Her skull was throbbing with a rhythmic pain, and her eyes burned with such intensity that even the simple act of blinking felt like a Herculean task. Her mental state was a total echoing void. Xiao Jiajia wanted to drive to my apartment to hunt me down, but she realized her grip on the steering wheel didn't possess a single ounce of strength. While she sat there in a paralyzed daze, her best friend's name flashed on the screen. Xiao Jiajia scrambled to pick up, her voice a broken rasp as she choked out, "Help me." The friend on the other end was struck silent, letting out a heavy, weary sigh that spoke volumes. After sharing her coordinates, Xiao Jiajia finally found a dam break for her emotions. Moaning in agony, "I can't get through to him. I never imagined it would end in this disaster. He must be so profoundly wounded. That's why he's shutting me out." "It's not that you were oblivious," her friend countered. "You were simply consumed by your own greed." Xiao Jiajia, if we hadn't been raised together as childhood friends, given the disgraceful way you've been behaving lately, I'd have nothing but pure contempt for you too. Even though her friend's words cut like a serrated blade, Xiao Jiajia didn't offer a single defense. She just kept her head hung in shame. She was interrogating her own soul as well. Why on earth did she betray me so heartlessly? When exactly did this toxic descent begin? By all accounts, I was the quintessential perfect man, the golden son that every parent held up as an idol and praised with relentless envy. But in my universe, she was the only star that mattered. No matter the hour, no matter the distance, as long as she graced the room, my gaze was anchored solely on her. Regardless of the circumstances, the moment she voiced a need, I'd materialize by her side without a moment's hesitation. I never threw childish tantrums or made selfish demands. I simply dedicated myself to her without a single word of complaint. Over the years, the sharp and formidable persona that the world feared had all its rough edges smoothed away whenever I was with her. Consequently, when Lu Li, a guy radiating a completely different reckless energy, appeared, Xiao Jiajia's loyalty began to drift into dangerous territory. Compared to me, who seemed self-sufficient and unshakable, Lu Li was pathetically easy to manipulate and satisfy. Just a microscopic crumb of attention from her could keep Lu Li fueled and obsessed for an entire month. This twisted sense of ego-boosting achievement led her to stop resisting Lu Li's calculated flirtatious advances. She became perpetually distracted, started weaving a web of lies to deceive me, and began siphoning more and more of her life into Lu Li. But what was my crime? What did I do to deserve this? Xiao Jiajia had been blind to the truth until now. How low and utterly pathetic her double life had truly become. She collapsed, drained of all strength, against the driver's seat. By the time her friend finally reached her, all she found was a version of Xiao Jiajia who looked absolutely hollowed out and miserable. Catching the clinical scent of hospital disinfectant clinging to her, her friend recoiled in visible disgust. "Don't tell me you actually had the nerve to go see Shenmo in those filthy clothes." At the sound of her friend's biting voice, Xiao Jiajia finally jolted back to reality. A moment later, she forced a pathetic, trembling smile. "I'll scrub the filth off me before I go crawl back to him." Witnessing her pathetic state, her friend lost the heart to twist the knife any further. She dragged her to a hotel to scrub off the grime and regain some semblance of dignity. Once composed, they bypassed all distractions and drove straight to my residence. However, the pair stood vigil outside my door for an agonizing 30 minutes, yet not a single soul emerged from the silence. Xiao Jiajia was eventually forced to take a trembling step forward to bypass the lock using her registered fingerprint. But the moment her finger pressed against the sensor, it flashed a cold scarlet access denied notification. At the sound of that mechanical rejection, Xiao Jiajia froze, her heart skipping a beat. Refusing to accept the reality, she scrambled to try again. But right then, Auntie Zhao's stern voice cut through the air behind her. Miss Xiao. Auntie Zhao, please, I desperately need to find Shen Mo. I am aware. However, the young master has already departed on a journey. He won't be returning to this house for quite some time. Then tell me, when exactly will he be back? I haven't the slightest clue. As of tomorrow, I am also heading abroad for an extended vacation. There is no longer any reason for you to frequent this property. Seeing Auntie Zhao turn to enter the house after dropping that bombshell, Xiao Jiajia lunged forward to intercept her. Auntie Zhao, I'm begging you, can you please call Shen Mo for me? There are things I absolutely must say to him. Please, I'm down on my knees begging you. This is exactly how the young master intended it. My hands are tied. Miss Xiao, you've been by his side for so many years. You should be intimately familiar with his temperament by now. Search your own conscience and ask what you could have possibly done to drive our young master to act with such cold finality. Remember from the moment he was born. Our young master has never been subjected to such mistreatment. You are the very first person to ever make him weep from sheer fury. I truly hope the weight of your regret isn't too much to bear. Xiao Jiajia felt an invisible vice tightening around her throat. She remained paralyzed, unable to squeeze out a single syllable. As for the question Auntie Zhao had posed, she had no answer, and she certainly lacked the dignity to attempt one. As the heavy door slammed shut in her face once more, tears finally spilled from Xiao Jiajia's bloodshot eyes. Her white-knuckled fist shook with suppressed emotion, and her entire frame looked as though it were on the verge of splintering. Her friend took one look at her shattered condition, and could offer nothing but a heavy, weary sigh. Both she and Xiao Jiajia understood the brutal truth. There would be no reconciliation today. And as for what the future held, Xiao Jiajia was far too terrified to even let her mind go there. Simultaneously, on the other side of the world, as my flight touched down at Gangcheng International Airport, I unexpectedly stumbled upon some greasy middle-aged creep harassing a young woman. He was clearly desperate for her contact info, but after being shut down, he began intentionally touching her. Then he started spewing lies, publicly labeling her a gold digger. The crowd just stood there, watching the drama unfold with idle curiosity. I couldn't just be a bystander, so I stepped in to intervene. But before we could even attempt a civil conversation, the guy snapped and started hurling insults at me. I wasn't about to let that disrespect slide, so I let my fists do the talking. In no time at all, airport security came charging over and swarmed the scene. In the meantime, from the vantage point of the nearby VIP lounge, several pairs of eyes were dissecting the entire spectacle. That kid's got a razor-sharp tongue. He's definitely a cut above the rest, though he's certainly walked into a mess now. Throwing hands at the Gangcheng airport. It isn't exactly the end of the world, but it's a far cry from a minor incident. If the guy he leveled decides to press charges, he's looking at a mandatory stint behind bars. Sister Han, are you going to play the hero and rescue this handsome stranger? Relax, he doesn't need a savior. Hearing this, Zhang Yueyao was gearing up to argue when she spotted me making a phone call just a few yards away. Suddenly, the security lead answered his walkie-talkie, listened to a few brief words, and his posture shifted into one of extreme deference. He gave me a polite, subservient after you gesture. The moment I walked away, they hauled off the man who was still kneeling on the pavement, too broken to even stand. Sister Han, how were you so sure he'd walk away scot-free? When that man disembarked from the plane, the entire flight crew personally escorted him out. To command that level of VIP subservience from the staff, it doesn't just imply he's wealthy, it means he wields some serious high-level influence. Outside the terminal, the girl was being relentlessly persistent, demanding that she buy me dinner as a thank you. I found it impossible to turn her down. By the time I finally finished checking into my hotel, the clock had already struck 8 p.m. Seeing how aggressively my battery had been hemorrhaged by the relentless nonstop barrage of incoming calls, I scowled in a fit of pure unadulterated irritation. I slammed it onto the charger, while dialing my parents to confirm my safe arrival. The following morning, my parents instructed me to forward my hotel coordinates to my elder sister, Shen Qingyue, so she could deliver some essential supplies to me. The moment I ended the call, I saw a familiar number trying to claw its way back in. I let out a sharp P O K yes it said kid sitting to gate kid T Even though it appeared as an unrecognized contact, it didn't take a genius to realize exactly who was on the other end. On the other side of the line, Xiao Jiajia was certain that I would leave her ringing in the void again, but the call actually connected. Staring at the in-call timer, Xiao Jiajia's heart hammered against her ribs. Are you okay? It hadn't even been 24 hours. Yet Xiao Jiajia looked like an absolute hollowed-out wreck. Her eyes were bloodshot, framed by deep bruised circles, and she appeared utterly drained of life. I couldn't see her pathetic state, and frankly, even if I could, I wouldn't feel a shred of pity. Miss Xiao, aren't you exhausted from this performance yet? Over 99 missed calls. So. If my phone wasn't top-tier hardware, I'm fairly certain it would have spontaneously combusted by now. Where are you? Just tell me and I'll come to you. Can we please just settle this face-to-face? And what exactly do you plan on confessing? How you slithered behind my back to entertain Lu Li? How exhilarating your little forbidden tryst felt? Or perhaps that despite your blatant betrayal, I'm supposedly still your one true love. Xiao Jiajia, your apologies aren't worth a damn thing to me anymore. It wasn't what it looked like. Between Shenmo Lu Li and myself, nothing physical ever truly took place between us. At the very most, it was just that one fleeting embrace. Nothing else happened, I swear on my life. Please don't just erase me. Just give me one final chance. I'm begging you, she wailed, desperately trying to salvage the wreckage. Ever since she was cut off from me yesterday, Xiao Jiajia felt as if her entire reality had been stripped of its meaning. A single suffocating thought consumed her entire being. She was the one who was truly incapable of existing without me. Only by hunting me down and reclaiming my presence could her hollow world regain any semblance of meaning. So she desperately clawed for any way to reach me, never imagining her efforts would be dismissed as not meaning jack. Before Xiao Jiajia could utter another desperate word, the receiver was filled with nothing but the cold rhythmic dial tone. She instinctively lunged for the redial button, only to realize that I had already banished this number into the void too. Left with no alternative, she scrambled for another phone to restart her pursuit. I stared down at my screen as yet another unidentified call vibrated. Recalling the promise I made to my parents, I suppressed the overwhelming urge to just kill the power entirely. Consequently, the very first thing I did upon stepping out was head straight to a service center to secure a brand new SIM card. After forwarding the fresh digits to my parents, I ruthlessly deactivated the old tainted card forever. Then, guided by a map recommendation, I found myself at a bar's entrance. A few moments later, Zhang Yueyao trailed behind the bartender and began walking directly toward me. I was perched on a sleek swivel chair at the counter, absently fiddling with my device. She looked up with a casual yawn, only to freeze instantly, her eyes bulging in recognition. No way. What are the astronomical odds of this? Zhang Yueyao felt her heart flutter as she leaned in close, invading my personal space. I happen to be the manager here. What can I do for you, handsome stranger? I want to reserve the entire coastal lounge area for myself. It was only after stepping inside the establishment that I realized the end of this quaint cobblestone path opened up directly into the vast shimmering coastline. From those exclusive seats, one could command a breathtaking view of the entire ocean. I have a peculiar little quirk. I enjoy finding a pocket of absolute silence within a thrumming crowd. Zhang Yueyao followed my contemplative gaze toward the western wing of the bar. She let out a playful laugh. You're quite the demanding one, aren't you? That's the most coveted real estate in the entire building, and you want to hog the whole view for yourself. Honestly, if you weren't so strikingly handsome, I would have tossed you out on the street by now. I threw a brief piercing glance her way, and with the flick of my wrist, a black card materialized between my fingers. Are you interested in making a profit today or not? Zhang Yueyao's eyes locked onto the elite card in my hand. She narrowed her eyes, a predatory smile flickering across her lips. She swiped the card and tossed it to the waiter hovering behind her, coolly inquiring exactly how much space I required. Every single table within a 10-meter radius. Zhang Yueyao gave a decisive nod and issued a sharp signal to her team. Staff immediately scrambled to vacate the premises, and before long, I was escorted to a prime position directly against the floor-to-ceiling glass. Sister Yao, why did you cave to such an arrogant demand? It's not like this establishment is hurting for money. Zhang Yueyao cast a sideways glance at him, replaying the scene at the airport terminal in her mind, where a certain high-status woman couldn't pull her gaze away from me. She offered a cryptic smirk. I'm simply terrified of a certain someone's wrath. The moment she sauntered away, the bewildered waiter finally connected the dots and grasped the weight of Zhang Yueyao's words. But Zhang Yueyao was indifferent to the whispers of her staff. She darted into the elevator ascending to the second floor and burst unceremoniously into a private VIP suite. You'll never guess who I just spotted downstairs. But as the heavy door swung open, she found the two occupants inside already dead to the world. Observing the sleeping pair, she curled her lip in mild annoyance, let out a contagious yawn, and decided to join them in slumber. 30 minutes later, Leng Yue finally nudged her back into consciousness. Come on, let's head down to the floor for some real food. Zhang Yueyao yawned one last time, groggy and stumbling as she followed the other two out. The The second they crossed the threshold of the private box, Zhang Yueyao's drowsiness vanished instantly. Just as she opened her mouth to spill the news, she noticed Gu Qinghan standing frozen, her eyes fixed on the level below. Following her intense gaze, Zhang Yueyao slapped her own forehead in realization. Sister Han? I completely forgot to mention. That entire massive section was cleared out by that guy from the airport. Even their habitual dining spot at the main bar counter fell squarely within my 10-meter exclusion zone. At this very moment, a third of the patrons in the hall were forming an orderly line before my table. Even those who weren't in the queue had their eyes practically glued to my section. A crowd of curious guys even joined the fray just to see what the hype was about. I didn't turn a single soul away. As long as they respected the line and possessed the right aesthetic and physique, anyone was welcome to sit across from me and challenge me to a round. The ultimate prize for a victory, they could finally add my personal contact info. If you lose, you're doing a mandatory lap around the coastline outside. The moment they arrived at the scene, another pair of girls dashed out the door in a frenzy. Finally grasping the sheer absurdity of the situation, Zhang Yueyao covered her mouth in genuine shock. This guy is an absolute master of the game. Leng Yue remained stoic, offering no comment. Instead, Gu Qinghan had already averted her gaze and began striding toward the elevator. For some inexplicable reason, Zhang Yueyao suddenly felt a mysterious, localized chill. She nudged Leng Yue intentionally. Don't you feel like the vibe is completely off? The only thing that's off is your brain. Did you seriously sell our private dining spot? You might as well have sold your common sense along with it. Gu Qinghan detested the lingering scent of food in the private boxes, which is why their meals were strictly reserved for the first floor. Zhang Yueyao clearly understood the source of Leng Yue's irritation and scrambled after her to beg for forgiveness. I'll go negotiate with him and borrow a table so we can eat. Zhang Yueyao didn't let Leng Yue's icy reception dampen her spirits. Once downstairs, she made a beeline toward me. She offered a casual greeting and dropped into the seat directly in front of me. Consider the drinks on the house tonight. How about you lend us a single table so we can grab a bite? After receiving a subtle nod of approval from me, Zhang Yueyao immediately claimed the booth adjacent to mine and beckoned Gu Qinghan and Leng Yue to join her. Leng Yue hissed under her breath in pure exasperation. You are literally the owner of this establishment. Yet you're reduced to begging a guest for a place to sit. This entire disaster is Zhang Yueyao's fault. On the contrary, Gu Qinghan appeared entirely unfazed by the ordeal. She pulled her gaze away from my direction and calmly took a seat beside Zhang Yueyao while waiting for their order to be served. Zhang Yueyao leaned over the sofa toward my section, intently watching me systematically dismantle the people trying to flirt with me. As the minutes bled away, second by agonizing second, the crowd in front of me began to thin out. Not a single challenger could manage to best me. Witnessing their failure, I let out a bored, weary yawn, pushed back my chair, and prepared to make my exit. Zhang Yueyao was blindsided by my sudden departure and quickly spoke up. Leaving so soon? Has the competition grown too dull for you? How about you test your luck against us? My sister Han's dice-shaking skills are legendary. I halted in my tracks and slowly craned my neck around. My gaze locked onto the woman who was currently fixated on her phone. To be perfectly honest, of all the women who have ever crossed my path, she is precisely my aesthetic. As if detecting my intense scrutiny, Gu Qinghan looked up from her screen and met my eyes. I offered her a curt casual nod and strode directly toward her. Care for a round? Hearing this, Gu Qinghan let out a faint melodic chuckle. She feigned ignorance, tilting her head. Play what exactly? There had been a literal riot of commotion at my table. Was it even possible she hadn't noticed the chaos? Then again, she was buried in her phone, so perhaps it was genuine. I weighed the thought for a moment and suddenly felt my interest evaporate. Forget it. I only approached because I sensed her eyes burning into me and decided to indulge the curiosity. Since she's clearly uninterested, I'm not about to force the issue. With that thought, I flashed a polite yet dismissive apologetic smile. Forgive the interruption. I turned to walk away. Gu Qinghan watched my retreating figure, feeling a sudden sharp constriction in her chest. She blurted out a half-formed sentence, but I kept walking, feigning total deafness. However, Zhang Yueyao wasn't about to let me escape that easily. She lunged forward to intercept my path. Wait, don't go. We'll play, she pleaded frantically. Once Sister Han finished her sentence, I countered, I'm not interested in playing with her. How about I take you on instead? Upon hearing this, Zhang Yueyao was momentarily paralyzed by shock. But a heartbeat later, feeling Gu Qinghan's heavy gaze on her back, she snapped back to her senses. She shook her head with violent intensity. I'm absolute garbage at this. You have to play with Sister Han. She's a literal goddess of the game, she praised, though her eyes were swimming with desperate pleas. Heaven knows how rare it is for Gu Qinghan to look at anyone twice. If Zhang Yueyao botched this encounter, the powerful titans backing Gu Qinghan would literally skin her alive. Even though we had just met, I immediately decoded the frantic vibe she was giving off. I wasn't really feeling the mood anymore, so I prepared a tactful rejection. But she clearly has no desire to play with me. How could that possibly be true? She's just putting on a front to look cool. You understand, right? I instinctively burst into a fit of laughter. I pivoted back to lock eyes with Gu Qinghan, witnessing her looking visibly awkward and stiff from those words, yet desperately attempting to maintain her icy poker face. I immediately began laughing even more shamelessly at the sight. Settling back into the seat directly across from her, I rattled the dice cup on the table. So what's the game? Gu Qinghan leaned forward, narrowing her eyes. Best 2 out of 3. We'll play strictly by your house rules. The loser does a lap of shame outside. The winner claims the contact info. Do we have a deal? Are we calling big or small? Gu Qinghan didn't press the issue and left the decision to me. Fine, you take the first move. Gu Qinghan didn't hesitate for a second. I watched intently as she slid the dice cup across the surface, giving it a casual rhythmic shake 2 or 3 times, before slamming it to a definitive halt. Then she gave me a graceful, your turn gesture. I mirrored her, giving mine a few sharp rattles before setting it down. But the outcome proved exactly what Zhang Yueyao had warned. Even though I rolled a solid set of 3 ones, Gu Qinghan had stacked all 3 of her dice in a perfect vertical tower, displaying only a single solitary one on top. I had no choice but to gracefully concede defeat. I stood up immediately, prepared to pay my debt with a lap. Seeing me move to leave, Gu Qinghan shot a frantic look at her friend. Zhang Yueyao intercepted the signal instantly and blocked my path once more. Wait. Hold your horses handsome. What's the catch? Are you ladies actually showing mercy and letting me skip the cardio? Absolutely not. We emerged victorious. So we're here to collect your contact info as promised. Hearing that, I couldn't feasibly play dumb any longer. I honestly produced my phone from my pocket and officially exchanged contact details with Gu Qinghan. Zhang Yueyao decided she wasn't about to be left out. I'm getting in on this too. I'm nowhere near as god tier at dice as you are. So let's make a deal. Whenever you're here, the tab is on me. If that's the case, you're better off just showing me the best eats. Given Zhang Yueyao's vibrant personality, I'd bet she's a hardcore foodie. If I followed her lead, I'd never have to settle for a mid-tier meal again. Upon hearing that, Zhang Yueyao scanned my QR code with lightning speed. Then it's a settled deal. The name's Zhang Yueyao. By the way, are you just passing through Gongcheng on vacation? For the time being, yeah. Just drop me a message if anything pops up. I'm going to head back to the hotel and get some rest. See you around. I vanished from the bar before Zhang Yueyao could intercept me. A few moments later, observing Gu Qinghan's uncharacteristically pensive expression, Leng Yue couldn't resist asking, "What's the verdict, Sister Han? Are you actually catching feelings for him?" Gu Qinghan massaged her aching temples and let out a heavy, weary sigh. The problem is, he's clearly not interested in me. Leng Yue shrugged and shot a knowing glance at Zhang Yueyao. It definitely seemed like he was more hyped about Zhang Yueyao than you. Those blunt words startled Zhang Yueyao, who was currently busy stalking my social media profiles. No freaking way. But thinking back to our interaction just now, I suppose it's the truth. Shema definitely gave me more energy than he gave you. With that said, she shoved her phone screen in front of Gu Qinghan. Look at this. He just went through a breakup. Judging by his feed, it only went down 2 days ago. Hearing this, Leng Yue leaned in with an expression of pure disbelief. What, you're kidding? Who on earth could be that blind? Even though my personality and aesthetics weren't exactly her brand, she wouldn't lie to herself and deny that I was a total catch. But as she scrolled through the content of my recent posts, even she fell uncharacteristically silent for a long moment. Wow, someone out there really is that delusional. Zhang Yueyao frowned, her mind spinning with new theories. So Shenmo escaped to Gangcheng to heal a shattered heart. That's absolutely perfect. Sister Han, this is your golden opportunity to slide in while he's vulnerable. Looking at the overly hyped Zhang Yueyao, Gu Qinghan couldn't help but feel a flicker of self-doubt. Is my interest really that glaringly obvious? Not blatantly obvious. Girl, from the second you first laid eyes on Shenmo yesterday, you haven't been able to tear your gaze away. And back at the airport yesterday, you claimed he didn't need our intervention. Yet you still went behind our backs to contact the airport manager, just to ensure the path was cleared for him. When Gu Qinghan had uttered those dismissive words, she had literally just hit send on that executive order. Kang Yueyao has razor-sharp eyes. She had caught a glimpse of the sent message instantly. She knew exactly what kind of game was being played. If yesterday's calculated maneuver by Gu Qinghan could be interpreted as a mere fleeting burst of uncharacteristic kindness, then her blatant actions today completely shattered both of their expectations. That's precisely why Zhang Yueyao suggested hijacking my table, and why she engineered the dice duel between me and Gu Qinghan. The fact that Gu Qinghan didn't offer a single protest confirmed that her suspicions were dead on the money. Witnessing the two of them smirking and trading knowing winks, Gu Qinghan shook her head helplessly, unable to deny the truth. Gu Qinghan was a complete stranger to the world of romance, yet she understood that her fixation on me was evolving into something far more intense than a simple platonic friendship. The frantic drumming of her heart and the heat flushing her cheeks were vivid reminders that she was venturing into uncharted emotional territory. Even the mere thought of my name made her feel like a flustered fool. And under the relentless teasing of Zhang Yueyao and Leng Yue, her ears turned crimson as she finally broke her silence. to establish some necessary boundaries. Whatever you do, do not go bothering him. Zhang Yueyao and Leng Yue traded glances and gave a solemn nod. Leng Yue understood that in the high-stakes game of love, you have to let destiny take its natural course. But Zhang Yueyao reasoned that as long as she didn't mention Gu Qinghan, inviting me out for a casual hangout wouldn't technically violate Gu Qinghan's strict decree. Meanwhile, the moment I stepped out of the bar, I sensed several pairs of eyes tracking my every movement from the shadows. Strangely, before I could even formulate a plan to confront them, those predatory gazes simply evaporated into thin air. I circled the block a few more times to be certain, confirming that the shadows stalking me had truly and completely vanished into the night. Then I hailed a cab back to my hotel. After a refreshing shower to wash off the day, I took my phone out to the crisp air of the hotel balcony. I collapsed onto a lounge chair and opened WeChat to sort through the chaos. Seeing my status respawn back to life online, my best friend immediately bombarded me with question marks and began a frantic play-by-play of today's campus drama. On the university's public forum, the scandalous evidence of Xiao Jiajia and Lu Li had been scrubbed clean. He speculated that Xiao Jiajia had pulled strings to have them deleted. Beyond the digital cleanup, my friend forwarded a damning screenshot of a new post. Xiao Jiajia had taken to the campus forum herself, desperately claiming that her tryst with Lu Li was nothing but a misunderstanding. Claiming your relationship is rock solid and that you two never actually called it quits, I'm seeing a shocking number of people actually swallowing her lies. We were raised as childhood sweethearts and had been a pair for years. Beyond that, our aesthetics, elite family backgrounds, and sheer talent made us an undeniably flawless match. In the eyes of every student at Jin University, we were the ultimate power couple practically ordained by heaven. When the evidence from my social feed first leaked a few days ago, the masses desperately refused to accept their reality. They convinced themselves someone had maliciously photoshopped the images, just to sabotage our relationship and drive a wedge between us. Now that Xiao Jiajia has unleashed this official statement, even more people are dead certain that Xiao Jiajia and I are still the campus's golden couple. I tapped on the image my friend forwarded, which was a clear screenshot of Xiao Jiajia's blatant propaganda. The post read, "I appreciate everyone's concern, but Shamo and I are perfectly fine and happy. Regarding those misleading photos from 2 days ago, it was merely a random act of compassion for a fellow student in need. I urge everyone to cease the malicious circulation of those edited photos and videos, or I will be forced to take legal action to defend my reputation." It was a brief, calculated statement, so dripping with self-righteousness that it seemed almost airtight. I curled my lip in absolute disgust. After firing off a quick reply to my friend, I navigated straight to the campus forum. Thanks to the massive hype, Xiao Jiajia's post was still pinned to the top of the charts. I didn't even have to hunt for it. It was staring me in the face. I opened the comment section and typed out a single devastating line: "I am officially single." The delusion that my bond with Xiao Jiajia is rock solid is a pathetic fabrication manufactured by Xiao Jiajia herself. Furthermore, the footage of Xiao Jiajia and Lu Li's passionate embrace in the pouring rain was originally exposed by me. Sending my regards, I hope you two stay miserable together forever. After hitting send on that rebuttal, I figured if Xiao Jiajia wanted to play dirty and provoke me, there was absolutely no reason to maintain any shred of politeness. I took that same scathing message, copied it, and plastered it across my own social media homepage. I even took the liberty of tagging both Xiao Jiajia and Lu Li. Having finalized my counterattack, a wave of pure, refreshing satisfaction washed over me. I scrolled through my phone for a few more minutes before drifting into a peaceful sleep. Simultaneously, Xiao Jiajia having just laid eyes on my brutal response. Her face had withered into a sickly ashen shade. She lunged for our private DM on the campus forum. "Shemmo, where are you hiding? Do you truly have to be this cold-blooded? For the sake of the years we've spent building a life together, just give me one single chance. Let me explain everything to you, please." She waited for what felt like an eternity, but Xiao Jiajia was met with nothing but a deafening silence. Paralyzed by a searing heartache, she collapsed against the sofa. She downed the drink on the table in one desperate gulp, then bombarded me again. "Fine, we don't have to meet. Lu Li was nothing but a pawn to make you jealous, understand? I just craved a little more of your attention. That hug was the extent of it. Nothing else happened. Shema, I only love you. I never once dreamed of leaving you. Please don't be this heartless and discard me like trash, okay?" After hitting send on that frantic plea, Xiao Jiajia slumped from the sofa onto the cold carpet. She had no idea which heavy hitter had intervened, but the reality was brutal. She was completely unable to track my current location. I hadn't granted her a single second to catch her breath, simply vanishing from her existence without a trace. Xiao Jiajia was trapped in a cycle of constant agony, obsessively scrolling through our old chat logs, praying for a notification to pop up at any moment. She felt that even if I lashed out or cursed her name, it would be a mercy compared to this absolute radio silence. Receiving such icy, ruthless rebuttals from me felt like a serrated blade twisting in her chest. Xiao Jiajia squeezed her eyes shut, tears cascading down her pale face. "Shemo, I truly realize I've ruined everything. Why can't you just show me a shred of mercy for once? You clearly worshipped me once. Since dropping that nuclear bombshell on the campus forum, I hadn't spared a single thought for the chaos back at Jin University. Today, I took advantage of the downpour to indulge in a nap. The moment I drifted awake, a message from Zhang Yueyao flashed. We had only crossed paths once, so her proactive nature was a genuine surprise. I opened the chat, Shenmo looking to get out and play. I'm hosting a massive bash at a private manor. The scenery is breathtaking. Are you interested? The second I tapped on the text box, Zhang Yueyao, watching from the other side, spotted the typing indicator immediately. She instantly spammed, "Don't say no, come on, come on." The crowd in this circle is incredibly laid back. I guarantee no one is going to kill your vibe. Scanning her message, I hesitated for a moment and deleted my not interested draft, since she went through all the trouble of inviting me and my schedule is currently a total void. Venturing out for some excitement wasn't a terrible plan. I told her to drop the logistics time and place. Seeing that I'd finally caved to the meetup, Zhang Yueyao's grin stretched from ear to ear. Departing in an hour, the venue is strictly private property, so outside vehicles are barred from entry. I'll personally swing by to pick you up. Of course, if that's a boundary for you, I can just wait at the main intersection. Since I had already committed to the trip, I didn't particularly care about revealing my coordinates. Given the Zhang family's massive influence in Gangcheng, it's not like they couldn't track me down if they were truly motivated. So I simply fired over my current location. An hour evaporated in an instant. I had just finished getting myself together when a photo notification popped up from Zhang Yueyao. The text was short, "I'm downstairs." After giving my elder sister, Shen Xingyuo, a quick heads up about my plan, I took the elevator down to the lobby. The moment I stepped out of the hotel entrance, Zhang Yueyao's eyes locked onto me. She leaned halfway out of the car window to wave frantically, then caught herself and ducked back inside, popping the door open with a sheepish grin instead. To be fair, Zhang Yueyao didn't even need to flag me down. Her presence was hard to miss. That pristine white Range Rover was an absolute beacon. I approached the vehicle, internally debating the etiquette of the front versus the back. Zhang Yueyao made the choice for me, swinging the rear door open. A certain VIP has already laid claim to the shotgun seat, so you'll have to settle for the back row. My apologies? I nodded my thanks and prepared to climb inside. Suddenly, an elegant hand entered my field of vision. I raised my eyes, and my gaze collided with the person already ensconced within the car. Crossing paths with her once more, I was still quietly floored by Gu Qinghan's lethal beauty. This woman is a literal masterpiece of perfection. Do you require some assistance? Hearing this, I was momentarily baffled by her thought process. I shifted my gaze from her outstretched hand to her porcelain face. Eventually, I instinctively let my hand come to rest against her arm. Once I was firmly ensconced in the seat, I began clicking my seatbelt into place. As for the enigmatic Gu Qinghan, she remained fixated on the exact patch of skin where our hands had met. She was struck by the searing warmth radiating from my touch. The very instant our skin made contact, an inexplicable electric jolt shot straight to her heart. A violent shiver even cascaded through her entire frame. Gu Qinghan felt as though she were losing control of her senses. It felt as if her entire being was being consumed by a sudden wildfire. She pressed her lips into a thin line, feeling a feverish heat blossoming across her ears, and pivoted sharply toward the window, in a desperate attempt to camouflage her flustered reaction. Zhang Yueyao intercepted the entire dramatic exchange in the back, and struggled to stifle a series of mischievous giggles. She began humming a playful tune as she shifted the car into gear. On the open road, my knuckles whitened as I gripped the seatbelt. Gu Qinghan, having finally reclaimed her composure, immediately detected my subtle signs of distress. She knitted her brows in deep contemplation for a moment, then delivered a sharp, commanding kick to the back of the driver's seat. Slow this car down. Shemo, are you feeling unwell? It's just a touch of motion sickness. Nothing to worry about. I'm not going to ruin your upholstery. I just feel like the world is spinning. Upon hearing that admission, Zhang Yueyao instantly decelerated to a much more cautious pace. Noticing the drastic shift in speed, I quickly interjected to stop her. Just maintain your usual pace. I'd rather reach the destination quickly than prolong this agony. Zhang Yueyao looked momentarily struck dumb, but seeing the unwavering resolve burning in my eyes, she had no choice but to floor the accelerator once more. A few minutes into the journey, Gu Qinghan suddenly commanded the car to come to a halt. Almost as if on cue, a figure waiting by the roadside stepped out of the shadows and presented a boutique shopping bag. Gu Qinghan accepted it and meticulously inspected the contents. Satisfied that it was exactly what she had requested, she fished an item out and pressed it into my hands. Honey citron lemon tea. Sipping this should soothe your nausea. I was momentarily paralyzed by the gesture, then pointed a finger at my chest. Wait, this is for me. You're the only soul in this vehicle who's currently suffering. Then I won't waste time on empty formalities. Much appreciated. I offered her a gracious, subtle smile and accepted the cup from her. Watching me tilt my head back, my Adam's apple bobbing rhythmically, Gu Qinghan found herself momentarily entranced. The second I finished the last drop, Gu Qinghan retrieved a small box from the depths of the bag and pressed it into my hand. Anti-nausea meds, it's a fresh pack. Now I was actually starting to feel a wave of genuine bashfulness. Turning the syllables of her name over in my mind, I shifted my gaze to meet hers. Gu Qinghan, are you always this remarkably thoughtful and attentive? Zhang Yueyao, perched in the driver's seat, burst into a fit of laughter the instant those words hit her ears. Gu Qinghan actually attentive. That was without a single doubt the most hysterical joke she had ever heard in her entire life. But Gu Qinghan sitting beside me didn't share the laughter. She dodged my question entirely, a faint smile playing on her lips. We still have an hour of road ahead before we reach the manor. Taking the medication now will ensure you aren't miserable. I gave a slow nod, popped a pill and swallowed it with a quick tilt of my head, then sank back into the plush seat to let the medicine work. As for whether Gu Qinghan was truly an attentive person, since we were nothing more than passing acquaintances, it didn't particularly weigh on my mind. The minutes bled into one another, and my breathing grew increasingly deep and rhythmic. As I drifted off, my head began to loll with the gentle swaying of the car. Just as I was about to collide with the cold window pane, Gu Qinghan lunged over and instinctively threw her hand out. Her palm acted as a soft cushion between my skull and the glass. A heartbeat later, my forehead came to rest firmly against her warm skin. Staring down at my features from such an intimate distance, Gu Qinghan finally felt the weight of it, just how impulsive and reckless her actions had become. She involuntarily held her breath paralyzed, absolutely terrified that the slightest movement would wake me. But in that suspended moment, Gu Qinghan was suddenly struck by, as if her heart had been hijacked by a stranger. Thump, thump. The frantic rhythm completely exposing her shattered composure. When I finally fluttered my eyes open, Gu Qinghan realized with a jolt that Gu Qinghan had become a statue of pure frozen tension. Our proximity was dangerously intimate, so close that it wasn't just Gu Qinghan who was intoxicated by my scent, but I was drowning in the rich sandalwood fragrance radiating from her. Her arm was still draped protectively in front of me, and the skin where my forehead had rested felt feverishly warm. I shifted my weight slightly, slowly pulling my head back, to release Gu Qinghan's captive hand. Gu Qinghan retracted her arm instantly, visibly flustered and out of breath. Forgive me, did I disturb your sleep? I gave a slow shake of my head, tracing the elegant lines of her features, before leaning in closer. I've always had a profound weakness for sandalwood. When it comes to the world of fragrance, I am borderline obsessed with deep woody sandalwood notes. Because of this obsession, I used to gift Xiao Jiajia expensive perfumes featuring sandalwood as the heart. But predictably, she never bothered to wear them even once. However, the Gu Qinghan standing before me was the ultimate validation of my refined taste. A cold, sophisticated woman like her was the perfect canvas for that scent. As the realization hit, a spark ignited in my eyes. I possess a vintage bottle that would complement you flawlessly. Unfortunately, I didn't bring it on this trip. I'll arrange to have it shipped here within the next few days. Would you allow me to gift it to you? Upon hearing my proposition, Gu Qinghan locked her gaze onto mine for an agonizingly long moment. Only then did she tear her eyes away with visible effort. Does Mr. Shen make a habit of gifting such things? Hardly. But your striking aesthetic and aura, Miss Gu, are a perfect match. I had that specific fragrance custom blended. It is truly one of a kind in this world. Since Gu Qinghan hadn't offered a definitive response yet, I pressed her for an answer one more time. As the silent seconds stretched out, Zhang Yueyao, focused on the road ahead, could feel the thick electric tension vibrating through the air. But in a high-stakes moment like this, she was far too intelligent to speak up and shatter the mood. After a heavy, pregnant pause, Gu Qinghan finally fought back the urge to let a smile break through, and offered a subtle, elegant nod. Then we have a deal. With that settled, I produced my phone and requested her private address. Zhang Yueyao navigated a few more miles down the winding road, then signaled that our VIP guest had finally arrived. She eased the vehicle to a stop at a secluded fork in the path. 2 luxury vehicles were already stationed at the intersection. Upon spotting our arrival, a young guy came charging over toward us. Damn it, Zhang Yueyao, how the hell could you not pick me up? But the instant his eyes landed on the occupant in the back seat, his entire posture snapped into a rigid military-like attention. He immediately plastered a sycophantic, flattering smile on his face. Sister Qinghan, it's been an absolute eternity. Gu Qinghan dismissed him with a single icy glance, without uttering a solitary word. Yet even that silent, piercing look sent a violent shiver down Xiaoyang's spine. Ever since he was a brat, Xiaoyang had been a fearless rebel. He'd even go toe-to-toe with his own old man without blinking. The sole exception was Gu Qinghan. He was terrified of her to his very marrow. If he had caught even a whisper that Gu Qinghan was attending today's bash, he would have concocted any desperate excuse to bail. Didn't the rumors explicitly state that Gu Qinghan was skipping this? Why on earth did she suddenly materialize out of thin air? He recoiled, attempting to blend into the shadows of the others. But as he shifted his weight, he caught sight of another figure disembarking from the car. Following the formal introductions, he offered me a greeting. He seemed like the quintessential social butterfly, a natural with people. After exchanging only a few brief words, he began prying into my personal life, inquiring if I had any older siblings to speak of. I blinked mentally, preparing my response. But in that exact heartbeat, a voice materialized like a freezing wind from behind us. What exactly are you two gossiping about? The tone was so frigid that even I felt a sudden breakout of goosebumps across my skin. And Xiaoyan, who was just throwing me a wink a second ago, looked like he was being physically strangled the moment he heard it. Oh, nothing of importance. Is my personal conversation truly that fascinating to you? His eyes darted toward me for a microsecond of pure panic. Then he forced a jagged smile and bolted away, finding myself standing there in solitary silence. Gu Qinghan's voice called out to me from across the clearing. I followed the command of the sound and spotted Gu Qinghan leaning elegantly against the Range Rover. She beckoned me toward her with a single authoritative hook of her finger. Judging by the curve of her lips, she was undeniably summoning me. I'll admit, the aesthetic was top tier. But what was with this calling a stray dog energy? I grumbled a few choice words under my breath as I slowly began my trek over to where she stood. Gu Qinghan's eyes remained fixed on my moving lips. Wait until I'm within earshot to ask what you were just muttering. Upon hearing this, my expression immediately petrified. I was internally reeling. Is Gu Qinghan's hearing actually that god tier? I didn't even let a single syllable escape, did I? Sensing the sheer conflict written across my face, Gu Qinghan effortlessly deciphered exactly what was racing through my mind. I didn't hear a thing. I saw it. It hit me instantly. She was actually reading my lips. I claimed a spot beside Gu Qinghan and leaned against the vehicle. It was nothing of importance. If Gu Qinghan ever truly discovered the nature of my thoughts and actually began treating me like some obedient pet, what would remain of my pride? Gu Qinghan could clearly tell I was just feeding her a line. She chose to pivot the conversation elsewhere. Now that you've escaped the car, has your condition improved? Yeah, the motion sickness has pretty much evaporated. Truthfully, after the honey water and that brief nap, I was already feeling significantly revitalized. Now that the medication had fully surged through my system, and I was inhaling the crisp open air, the nausea had vanished entirely. At my confirmation, the subtle curve of Gu Qinghan's lips noticeably deepened. Eventually, the conversation drifted into a comfortable silence, as we stood shoulder to shoulder, lost in the vastness of the sky. After a few moments, Xiaoyan began causing chaos with the rest of the group in the distance. He scanned the area with a mischievous glint, then decided to bolt over and snitch to Jiang Yueyao. He even intentionally accelerated his pace, as he sprinted past Gu Qinghan and me. Observing the raw, unbridled energy of these guys, I couldn't suppress a genuine smile. Gu Qinghan, standing right beside me, immediately caught the flicker of amusement on my face. Are you particularly fond of personalities like Xiaoyan's? Gu Qinghan had deduced that from Jiang Yueyao to Xiaoyan, I had zero defense against these vibrant, high-energy extroverts. How on earth did you manage to spot that? I simply used my eyes. Well, your eyes are undeniably razor-sharp. Don't you find that people with such radiant spirits act as a sort of warm guiding light? When I first touched down back in the country, I felt utterly alienated from my surroundings. Despite being fluent in the language, I still felt like a ghost haunting a world I didn't belong to. But in contrast to the peers of my generation, my mastery of social nuances and conversational pace was lagging significantly behind the curve. Perhaps it was my fragile pride at work, but during those formative years, I was intensely reluctant to utter a word in public. I was paralyzed by the fear that they'd expose my vulnerabilities. Yet there were always those few relentless kids who constantly pestered me to join their games. Maybe it was my striking looks that drew them in, because even after I shot them down repeatedly, they remained steadfast and patient by my side. When they eventually realized I struggled with my speech, they didn't subject me to ridicule or mockery. Instead, they waited with quiet patience for me to finish my thoughts. Later, they even went out of their way to help me refine my speaking speed. As the seasons drifted by, and my walls finally began to crumble, I successfully integrated into the world around me. Even though our paths diverged after graduation, from that transformative era onward, I've harbored an instinctive magnetic affinity toward individuals with that vibrant, outgoing spirit. While I was lost in the echoes of the past, Gu Qinghan lingered on that single word, warm, and began a deep internal interrogation of her own nature. With a cold disposition like mine, could someone like Shen Mo ever perceive me as warm? The internal verdict was a resounding absolute no. Aside from the fearless Jiang Yueyao, nearly every soul in Gengcheng was petrified of her very presence. She was the literal antithesis of a person, possessing a warm or approachable personality. Before long, the convoy moved out and reached the sprawling manor. Upon disembarking, the group scattered to handle their various duties, leaving only Xiaoyan and myself with zero responsibilities. He dragged me toward a secluded corner of the estate and flashed me a colossal thumbs up. Brother Mo, you are a straight-up legend in my books. Since I'm giving you your flowers like this, give me the real scoop. What's the actual deal between you and Sister Han Xiaozi? What makes you so curious? Because you are the first man to ever manifest by her side and receive such blatant preferential treatment. Keep it. The first, are you for real? With visuals as lethal as Gu Qinghan's, she must be drowning in a sea of suitors, right? Mind-blowing, isn't it? Trust me, I'm just as flabbergasted as you are. Brother Mo, seriously, how did you manage to pull a goddess like Sister Han? The sheer thirst for gossip in his voice made it clear. He was utterly convinced my dynamic with Gu Qinghan was anything but platonic. In Xiaoyan's reality, Gu Qinghan was a frigid, distant, and virtually untouchable enigma. People of their social standing only dared to breathe the same air as her, by leaning on the prestige of their family elders. But I was a complete anomaly. According to the piping hot tea he'd gathered from Jiang Yueyao, Gu Qinghan actually graced this party with her presence after initially declining, solely because of my involvement, even considering that this was literally only the second time our paths had ever crossed. Back when the group first assembled, Gu Qinghan had concocted an excuse to lure me into her vehicle and essentially served as my personal chauffeur. Forget Xiaoyan, not even Jiang Yueyao or her inner circle had ever experienced the luxury of being driven by Gu Qinghan. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Me seducing her? I tilted my head bewildered to glance at Gu Qinghan standing nearby. As if sensing my scrutiny, she pivoted her head to meet my gaze. Our eyes locked in a silent exchange, and I didn't flinch, offering her a casual, knowing smirk. Then I turned my attention back to a trembling Xiaoyan. Why would I ever need to pursue her? Is it so hard to believe that she's the one chasing me? Piecing together the reactions from Jiang Yueyao and the rest of the crew, I wasn't so incredibly dense that I couldn't perceive that Gu Qinghan clearly had a thing for me. Brother Mo, you've got some legendary balls of steel. Are you actually being serious right now? I'm just messing with your head. I currently have zero intentions of pursuing any kind of romance with your precious sister Han. Stop overthinking the situation. Witnessing my total indifference, Xiaoyan instantly spiraled into a panic. But you absolutely should. I only pried because I was dying of curiosity. I didn't mean to imply anything negative. I've already got eyes for someone else, the one who accompanied me here just a moment ago. I hear you, I hear you. Please just don't get worked up. Seeing his face turn pale with dread, I rushed to de-escalate his nerves. All while a single thought echoed in my mind. What kind of reign of terror did Gu Qinghan unleash on these poor souls to reduce someone to such a pathetic state of terror? In that exact moment, a set of familiar footsteps resonated from behind us. Xiaoyan was positioned perfectly to identify the newcomers, but the very instant his gaze swept over them, he instinctively scrambled to take cover behind me. Brother Mo, Sister Han, and Sister Yueyao are closing in. Watching him try to phase his entire body behind my back, Jiang Yueyao struggled to suppress a fit of laughter. Witnessing the sheer intensity of their reactions, Xiaoyan remained deathly silent. He was banking on the fact that as long as I was present, Gu Qinghan wouldn't spare him a second thought. True to form, from the second Gu Qinghan approached until she halted, her focus was anchored entirely on me. It wasn't until a heavy silence fell over the four of us that Gu Qinghan finally deigned to give Xiaoyan a glance. That solitary look was like a royal pardon from a queen to Xiaoyan. In a heartbeat, he bolted from the scene like a lightning strike. Seeing this, I quirked my lips and shifted my attention to Gu Qinghan. You've successfully terrified Xiaoyan into fleeing. Now who's supposed to help me kill time? Jiang Yueyao interjected playfully. Sister Han Ken, there's a swing set right over here. Sister Han has a real soft spot for swings. Why don't you two go enjoy yourselves? I'll leave the decision to you. Anyway, I'm off to oversee the feast preparations. In the blink of an eye, those two had vanished into thin air without a trace. Gu Qinghan, however, was in no particular hurry. She simply stood there, a quiet, elegant presence by my side. Occasionally her gaze would drift back toward me, but seeing me lost in the mesmerizing landscape, she chose not to shatter the tranquility. 30 minutes later, it was only when Jiang Yueyao and the crew announced dinner that I finally snapped back to reality and began the walk back alongside Gu Qinghan. The produce at the manor was strictly farm to table, and even the poultry was harvested on site, all to ensure an elite level of culinary freshness. The group had even commissioned a professional 5-star chef and his entire team to cater the event. By the time we had finished the exquisite meal, the darkness of night had completely enveloped the estate. The rest of the group seemed to have a silent pact to grant me some uninterrupted alone time with Gu Qinghan. A convoy of luxury cars then began its descent into downtown Gangcheng. Then we gradually dispersed into the night, until finally Gu Qinghan was the only soul still navigating the asphalt. She eased off the accelerator, slowing the vehicle down further and further, secretly praying that this stretch of road could stretch out just a bit longer, just a few more stolen moments. Eventually my exhaustion won and I couldn't stay awake a second more. Dazed and heavy-lidded, I surrendered to sleep, and only then did she finally accelerate to reach the hotel. Gu Qinghan disembarked from the car once more and retrieved a shopping bag from an associate waiting at the entrance. I had a custom cup of hawthorn juice prepared for you. Just stick to drinking half though. Too much of it might irritate your stomach. Understood. I appreciate the thoughtfulness, Miss Gu. I'm going to head up and crash now. Shoot me a text when you're home so I know you made it back safely. With those words, I gave a final wave and turned to disappear into the hotel. Not until my silhouette had completely vanished from her line of sight did Gu Qinghan finally pivot, get back in her car, and depart. A few days later, deep within a basement somewhere in Gangcheng, hoarse, pathetic pleas for mercy echoed through the damp air. The heavy iron door at the basement entrance creaked open. A A subordinate already stationed there offered a pair of pristine pre-prepared gloves. Sister Han, the interrogation is complete. We've broken them thoroughly. Every scrap of footage they managed to capture has been purged. How much of his life did they invade? At the question. The assistant immediately presented a confiscated phone. It's predominantly candid shots of Mr. Shen's daily routine. Fortunately, his hotel's security is top-notch. So these rats didn't have the chance to infiltrate his room yet. Gu Qinghan snatched the device and meticulously scrolled through the gallery one photo at a time, catching sight of my genuine smile captured in the images. A faint involuntary flush crept across her cheeks, but the moment she remembered these glimpses were stolen through such filthy predatory methods, Gu Qinghan's expression instantly curdled into pure ice. She patiently systematically deleted every single digital trace to ensure there were absolutely no loose ends left behind. Only then did she demand who was the puppet master behind this. It's Liu Ruyan, the eldest scion of the Liu family's new blood. The night Mr. Shen visited the bar, she happened to be scouting the crowd. Liu Ruyan is a notorious predator for high-tier visuals. With Mr. Shen's god-tier aesthetics, it was inevitable that she'd mark him as her prey. Gu Qinghan began a slow predatory walk toward the darkened room at the very end of the hallway. Then she began to dismantle the argument with icy precision. This has absolutely nothing to do with Shenmo's appearance. The fact that she hired thugs to stalk and prey on Shenmo is purely because she's a bottom-feeding predator. Stepping into the interrogation room, she personally oversaw the brutal questioning of the men once more. After ensuring every single scrap of intel had been extracted, Gu Qinghan peeled off her gloves and cast them onto the floor. Ignoring the agonizing wails echoing behind her, Gu Qinghan turned on her heel to depart. Deliver them to the authorities along with the evidence of their crimes. Let the law finish what we started. Oh, and there is one more crucial detail. Summon that old patriarch from the Liu family to meet me. If he's too incompetent to discipline his own blood, I'll be more than happy to do it for him. The following morning, I fought a losing battle with my blanket, struggling in vain to force my heavy eyelids open. It wasn't until Shen Qingyue's persistent call rang out that I finally reluctantly dragged myself from the abyss of sleep. Still buried in your sheets. It's already high noon back home by now. Yeah, I was dead to the world last night. Getting up feels like a monumental task. My network in Gangcheng flagged something concerning. You've had some shadows stalking your every move lately. The moment I received that intel, I ordered a deep dive into their identities. But 48 hours ago, your tail completely vanished into thin air. And just moments ago, my operatives received word that they've been gift-wrapped and handed over to the police. At those words, my eyes snapped wide open. Sis, are you saying your people weren't the ones who took them down? Hardly. If I had handled it, would I even be calling to update you? I knitted my brows, processing her blunt revelation. As I sifted through the possibilities for the truth, a few familiar striking faces flashed through my mind. After a brief silence where I failed to respond, Shen Qingyue's sharp intuition immediately flared. She cut straight to the chase. You know who did this, don't you? I have a strong suspicion. I've crossed paths with Gu Qinghan and Jiang Yueyao. In fact, we just shared a dinner a few nights back. But whether they're the ones pulling these strings, I can't say with absolute certainty just yet. And why on earth would they go to such lengths for you? Is it because of your ties to the Jin family's Gu clan? I pondered it for a moment and fired back a cocky reply. Honestly, I'm not sure. Perhaps Gu Qinghan is actually the one pursuing me. But why would Gu Qinghan be the one and not Jiang Yueyao? Following a stretch of heavy pregnant silence, Shen Qingyue weighed the sheer gravity of that possibility and realized it wasn't as far-fetched as it sounded. This time it was my turn to let the silence linger before breaking it. It's likely because Gu Qinghan's beauty simply eclipses Jiang Yueyao's. The web surrounding Gu Qinghan is incredibly intricate. She is the reigning monarch of the Gu family's power dynasty. Ordinary people wouldn't dare dream of crossing her. Are you absolutely certain you want to entangle yourself with her? And what about your history with Xiao Jiajia? Have you truly managed to scrub her from your heart? Shen Qingyue reasoned that given my deep-seated loyalties, I shouldn't have been able to discard Xiao Jiajia so effortlessly. Otherwise, there would have been no need for my sudden exodus to Gangcheng. The true motive for this flight was nothing more than a desire to vanish, to hide until every last ember of my feelings for Xiao Jiajia died out, ensuring I wouldn't crawl back the moment she weaponized her tears. But one should never exploit a third party, or a rebound relationship just to reach that finish line. Instantly deciphering Shen Qingyue's unspoken accusation, I rolled my eyes in exasperation. Listen, sis, I endured a messy breakup, not a tragic funeral. Furthermore, since Xiao Jiajia played me for a fool, why on earth should I mourn the loss of a traitor? Why would I collateralize an innocent person's heart over her? The values I was raised with didn't train me to remain shackled to a piece of cheating trash. My departure from the capital was fueled purely by a craving for freedom and fun. If it must be linked to Xiao Jiajia at all, it's only that I refused to give her the satisfaction of pestering or revolting me. Does that clarify things for you? Upon hearing my firm rebuttal, Shen Qingyue should have felt a wave of relief, since I've never made a habit of lying to my own blood. Yet the thought of Gu Qinghan closing the distance between us made her internal alarm scream once again. After all, compared to a petty girl like Xiao Jiajia, Gu Qinghan is a predator on an entirely different level of lethality. After enduring more time pacifying my overprotective sister, I finally used the classic excuse of a starving stomach to terminate the call. Immediately after, I navigated to Zhang Yueyao's chat box to interrogate her about the stalking incident. Probing the stalking incident, but as it turned out, he was just as clueless. Then he bypassed the text and rang me directly. It wasn't my doing, but I'd bet my life it was Sister Han. Even if she wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, she's the only one who can clear the fog for you. Why don't you just confront her yourself? Here's the catch though. Sister Han is likely drowning in work today, so she probably won't spare a second to check her DMs. I happen to be en route to her estate right now, so why don't I just swing by and chauffeur you there? Does that even follow a shred of logic? If Gu Qinghan is truly that swamped, would she even have a spare moment to entertain me? With that skepticism brewing, I voiced my concern bluntly. If Gu Qinghan is genuinely occupied, will she actually have the patience to see me? At that, Zhang Yueyao practically face-palmed through the phone and offered a rather flimsy justification. The underlying implication in her tone was blindingly obvious. Trust me, no matter how chaotic Sister Han's schedule is, she will always carve out an opening for you. So are you joining or not? Quit stalling, let's move. I simply played dumb and ignored the subtext. Fine, but I'm clueless about the directions. Just fire over the address first. Don't worry about the logistics. I'll be at your curb in 5. With that, she cut the line. Exactly 30 minutes later, Zhang Yueyao's car glided into the sprawling Gu family ancestral estate. Once parked, we still had a significant trek ahead of us, along the path that familiar sandalwood fragrance wafted through the air. As we approached the grand villa, we encountered an elderly man with a slight hunch standing by the entrance. Beside him, a woman was collapsed kneeling desperately on the pavement. I let my gaze linger on the pair for a fleeting second. I was intrigued, but I had no desire to meddle in their drama. Zhang Yueyao came to a halt before the old man, offering a respectful nod and a formal greeting. Elder Liu. Yueyao, it's you. Coming to pay Gu Qinghan a visit? Indeed, I have some pressing matters to discuss with Sister Han. This junior will take her leave and head inside now. Elder Liu managed to squeeze out a strained, forced smile. Zhang Yueyao gave a non-committal reply, her eyes scanning Elder Liu's unnervingly ashen face, and his forehead, which was glistening with cold sweat. Elder Liu kept his gaze averted, yet his peripheral vision. Observing me strolling beside Zhang Yueyao, his face twisted in bewilderment. Which high-profile family's young master could this possibly be? To have Zhang Yueyao personally escort him to a private audience with Gu Qinghan, his lineage and status are clearly no laughing matter. While he was internally spiraling, speculating about my identity, he failed to notice his granddaughter's petrified state beside him, staring directly at my face. Her entire expression froze into a mask of pure horror. Liu Ruyan finally connected the dots and realized the truth. The reason Gu Qinghan had launched a sudden brutal assault on the Liu family. But hadn't he only encountered Gu Qinghan a single time? Could someone like Zhang Yueyao actually be infatuated with him? Or is the icy Gu Qinghan herself the one who's captivated? Damn it, I unwittingly tried to poach a man from Gu Qinghan's territory. But I haven't even made a definitive move yet. I merely hired professionals to snap a few candid photos, just to gather some basic intelligence. The deeper Liu Ruyan sank into her thoughts, the more her face drained of color. She quietly choked down a breath of frigid air, reaching out with a trembling hand to tug on Elder Liu's sleeve. Grandpa, I think I've finally realized why Gu Qinghan is systematically dismantling our family. Just hang back here for a moment. I'll go ahead and announce our arrival. Across the way, Zhang Yueyao guided me into the grand living room foyer and requested that I wait while she formally signaled my presence. Sweeping into the main living quarters, she offered a brief nod to the circle of power players gathered there, before making a direct line for Gu Qinghan. She leaned in her voice a conspiratorial whisper. Shen Mo is here to see you. I took the liberty of bringing him along. He's waiting just outside in the foyer. Are you ready to see him? Gu Qinghan, who hadn't even acknowledged Zhang Yueyao's entrance, while she remained buried in her paperwork, heard that name, and slowly, deliberately lifted her head. Her piercing gaze bypassed the crowded room and locked onto the ornate jade screen standing in the foyer. She casually thrust the documents toward her assistant. We're finished for the day. This meeting is officially adjourned. In the Gu dynasty, Gu Qinghan's word was absolute law. It didn't matter how critical the banquet negotiations were, or if the pressing issues remained unresolved. The moment Gu Qinghan declared it over, not a single soul dared to linger for another heartbeat. The titans of industry in the room began to file out in a silent procession. I maintained a practiced polite smile and was about to move out of their path when Gu Qinghan's commanding silhouette dominated my vision first. Then she halted exactly 2 paces from me, visibly suppressing a magnetic urge to close the distance. Mr. Shen, my sincerest apologies for the delay. I gave a slight shake of my head, sensing the heavy weight of inquisitive stares from the departing crowd drifting toward me intermittently. I maintained my composure while addressing Gu Qinghan. The wait was inconsequential. The reason I've come is because my sister requested that I ask you. Gu Qinghan cut me off with an elegant gesture, inviting me inside. I began to advance, one measured step at a time, crossing past Gu Qinghan to enter the inner sanctum. Seeing the legendary Gu Qinghan actually trailing a step behind me, one of the departing power players couldn't help but hiss a question born of pure shock. Just who the hell is this guy? No idea. If he's not on your payroll, I suggest you stop prying into things above your grade. Give me a break. I'm just curious. Drop it already. Let's just get out of here. The interrogator attempted to snap back a retort. However, the moment those lethal gazes from the shadows locked onto him, his only instinct was to make a frantic exit. The crowd in the foyer evaporated in a heartbeat. The vast cavernous living room was left to only me, Gu Qinghan, and Zhang Yueyao, who was already lounging on a side chair. Observing Gu Qinghan actually playing the role of my shadow, Zhang Yueyao flashed her a knowing, mischievous smirk. She let out a theatrical yawn and began sauntering toward the exit. I'm still absolutely drained, so I'm heading back to my place to crash. Once Zhang Yueyao made her exit, Gu Qinghan pivoted toward a private door on the opposite side. Follow me. The living room is merely for the uninitiated. I'll host you in the tea room instead. I'm only here to verify a single detail with you. There's truly no need for such hospitality. I intended to depart the moment I received my answer, but it was blindingly obvious that Gu Qinghan had no intention of letting her prey escape so easily. True to form, a heartbeat later, she deployed her counter-argument. It is no trouble at all. I must properly entertain my VIP guest. We moved in a charged silence until we traversed a manicured miniature garden and stepped into the serene tea room nestled beside it. Gu Qinghan made an elegant gesture inviting me to take a seat. She then inquired about my preference for the afternoon tea. I told her anything would suffice and settled into the seat opposite hers. Observing the fluid grace with which she rinsed the cups and prepared the first steep, it was undeniable that she was a master of this traditional art. The delicate blue and white porcelain dancing between her slender fingers was quite frankly a top-tier visual masterpiece. Mesmerized by the display, my sense of urgency completely evaporated. Resting my chin lazily upon my palm, I watched with rapt fascination as she meticulously completed the brewing ritual. Finally, the moment arrived to savor the refined brew. Catching the flicker of satisfaction on my face, Gu Qinghan allowed a rare, subtle smile to grace her lips. She waited for me to drain the cup before instantly offering a refill. So what was the pressing matter that brought you to my doorstep? I came to inquire about the shadows that have been stalking me. Were you the one who cleared them out on my behalf? I'm simply seeking confirmation because among my acquaintances in Gangcheng, who possess both the intimacy and the sheer influence to pull it off, the list begins and ends with you and Zhang Yueyao. I've already interrogated Zhang Yueyao, and she denied any involvement. That left only you for me to question. It was indeed my doing. When you arrived moments ago, did you happen to notice the individual kneeling at the entrance? She was the mastermind who hired those creeps to monitor your every move. Rest easy, I've already handed those lowlifes over to the authorities. Noticing a wave of visible discomfort wash over my face, at the mere mention of being preyed upon, Gu Qinghan offered a final bit of reassurance. Every single candid photo of your private life has been systematically wiped from existence. You have absolutely nothing left to fear. I offered my initial gratitude, though I realized a hollow thanks carried very little weight. Thus, I gave her a solemn binding promise. Should you ever find yourself in need of assistance, I will move mountains to settle the debt. Gu Qinghan offered a curt nod of acknowledgement before finally unveiling her true agenda. Have you eaten lunch yet? Not a bite. Truthfully, I only rolled out of bed about 90 minutes ago. Perfect timing, then lunch has just been served. After you, Mr. Shen. The way she enunciated Mr. Shen sounded as if she had savored the name, on her tongue imbuing it with an electric, indescribable tension. I followed in her wake, instinctively reaching up to shield my burning ears from her sight. Honestly, you're more than welcome to just call me by my name. Or better yet, just call me Xiaomo. That's the name my family and inner circle usually use. Upon hearing this, Gu Qinghan's steady stride faltered for a heartbeat. She came to an abrupt, sudden standstill and fixed her piercing gaze directly onto mine. Then Gu Qinghan went on the full offensive. Her voice dropped as she whispered, "Xiao Mo." I was utterly defenseless against that tone. There was an obsessive magnetic trace in Gu Qinghan's voice that straight up shattered my composure. It was only after she resumed walking ahead that I desperately tried to soothe my thundering heart. We finally reached the formal dining hall, where a spread of 4 or 5 exquisite dishes awaited us. A heavy, comfortable silence hung between us throughout the meal. But catching the look on my face, it was glaringly obvious that I was vibing with every single bite. When Auntie Lee arrived to clear the porcelain plates, she couldn't help but offer a warm compliment. "You've certainly got a healthy appetite, young man." My thanks, Auntie Lee. The meal was absolutely divine. It truly rivals my own mother's home cooking. The next time you visit, make sure to tell Qinghan in advance exactly which delicacies you crave. Have her pass the word, and I'll prepare them personally for you. I would truly appreciate that, Auntie Lee. Shemo offered an obedient, respectful nod. punctuating his gratitude with a charmingly sweet smile. But the moment Auntie Lee retreated with a satisfied grin, Gu Qinghan suddenly trapped me in her gaze. Xiaomo, have you actually considered when next time might be? I jerked my head up in genuine surprise, colliding with Gu Qinghan's playful predatory smirk. Since when did you become such an over-the-top hostess? I'm simply concerned that Auntie Lee might find you disappointing. Whether she's disappointed or not doesn't actually hinge on me. It rests entirely in your hands. If CEO Gu extends the invitation, I'll be there. Upon hearing this admission, Gu Qinghan's eyes ignited with a sudden spark. She immediately tested the waters, then come every single day. I arched an eyebrow and offered a polite, firm shake of my head. Blatantly ignoring the flash of disappointment in her eyes, I casually wiped my mouth with a napkin. I'm officially stuffed. I appreciate the top-tier hospitality, CEO Gu. I'm going to make my exit now. Catch you later, CEO Gu. Gu Qinghan whispered a goodbye in return, but her body moved instinctively, a silent shadow trailing me as I turned to leave. Aren't you swamped with work? I can easily hail a cab. She stepped in, effectively barricading my path, fidgeting with a rare restlessness as she leaned in close. I am busy, but I insist on being your driver. It would be quite humiliating if my grand attempt to impress you was flat out rejected. Hearing that bit of vulnerability, I smirked and flashed her a thumbs up. CEO Gu, I truly admire the hustle. Good luck with that impressing thing. During the entire drive back, Gu Qinghan was lost in a labyrinth of thought. Good luck? How exactly was she supposed to level up her romantic game? What kind of monumental effort would it take to make Shenmo crave a meal with her every single day? And if she dared to be even more covetous, to have him anchored by her side every waking hour. When she eventually retreated to the Gu family estate, she found Auntie Lee, who should have been long asleep, still perched on the sofa waiting. Auntie Lee, why on earth are you still awake? Auntie Lee stood up, her gaze softening with maternal affection. I was waiting for you. Tell me, is that boy from today your sweetheart? The moment those words hung in the air, Gu Qinghan's icy professional exterior completely melted away. She offered a slow, deliberate nod of confession. And what about him? Does he reciprocate those feelings? Sigh with that cold disposition of yours. No boy has dared to love you since you were a child, Qinghan. Since you finally found one, you must cherish him properly. When the day comes that he asks for your hand, you must absolutely remember to present the heirlooms your mother left for her future son-in-law. Seeing Auntie Lee's imagination spiraling into wedding bells, Gu Qinghan quickly intervened to stop the madness. Auntie Lee, I don't even have a clue if he'll ever feel the same way. It's far too premature for all of this. The second those words left her lips, Auntie Lee's elaborate romantic fantasies were instantly incinerated. She shot Gu Qinghan a look of pure, unadulterated disappointment. You're pathetic. He's only visiting Gangcheng on a fleeting trip. He could vanish back home at any moment. So what if he does? If he won't make the first move, why can't you? You need to pursue him with everything you've got. Once you've trapped his heart, he can simply settle down here in Gangcheng. It is never that simple. Gu Qinghan massaged the tension building between her eyebrows. Zhang Yueyao had sung a very similar tune before. It was as if everyone assumed that a happy ending was guaranteed. I would have to dismantle my entire existence just to remain in Gangcheng. But that is fundamentally unjust to someone like me. None of us were ever meant to be a mere accessory to another. We are sovereign souls with the liberty to drift wherever we desire. First and foremost, he is a man of absolute freedom. He is entitled to reside in whatever damn corner of the world he pleases. What if his heart simply doesn't belong to Gangcheng in the future? Auntie Lee knitted her brows, visibly taken aback by her response. Gu Qinghan, the woman who usually remains deaf to all reason, seemed to undergo a complete soul swap whenever my name was mentioned. Gu Qinghan didn't waver for a single heartbeat. Then wherever he chooses to plant his roots, that is exactly where I will travel to find him. Then you had better hustle to capture his heart immediately. Otherwise, even if you cross oceans to see him, he might not even have the desire to grant you an audience. Love is a realm devoid of all logic. Since you've locked your sights on him, discard all notions of gender roles or social standing. Just pursue him with raw boldness. Gu Qinghan stood her ground, reasoning that since I had just survived a brutal breakup, it was wiser not to unleash a full-scale romantic assault just yet. Hunting down her own crush. This was officially the most punishing hidden boss fight Gu Qinghan had ever encountered in her entire life. The following day, I lugged some takeout snacks back to the hotel. The moment I reached my suite, I found the door standing wide open. Worse yet, a cluster of total strangers was loitering around the entrance. Men and women alike, none of whom I had ever laid eyes on before. In that exact second, a man stepped out from the interior of my room. Accelerate the cleaning process in there. My guest is scheduled to arrive any second, but I didn't approach. Instead, I immediately dialed Shen Qingyue. They clearly held the numbers advantage. I wasn't suicidal enough to attempt a solo confrontation. After securing a definitive answer from Shen Qingyue, I ended the call and prepared to make a quiet exit. But at that precise moment, a waiter emerging from the suite zeroed in on me instantly. He blurted out in genuine shock, "Mr. Shen, You finally returned." The instant those words echoed through the hall, every single person inside and outside the room simultaneously locked their predatory gazes directly onto me as I was attempting to retreat. At this critical juncture, not only did I refuse to stop, instead I broke into a brisk, determined stride. But these vultures obviously had no intention of letting me slip away. The hired muscle stationed at the entrance surged forward, effectively barricading my only path of retreat. Simultaneously, the mastermind from within the suite stepped out with deliberate slowness. After subjecting me to a condescending, head-to-toe appraisal, he let out a sharp, mocking sneer. Why the sudden hurry to escape? Consider this room officially confiscated for my own use. Now grab your pathetic belongings and vanish. This happened to be the most prestigious suite in the entire establishment. In the past, Lin Luoxuan frequently utilized it to entertain his elite guests. Hardly anyone possessed the capital for a long-term residency here, leaving the space largely unoccupied most of the year. But even if a legitimate guest was currently in residence, it held zero weight in the mind of Lin Luoxuan. In his warped worldview, I was a mere nobody with a bit of pocket change, utterly beneath his notice in the hierarchy of Gangcheng. At his arrogance, I let out a dry mocking laugh of my own. I locked my gaze onto the timepiece clamped around his wrist, and flashed him a look of unadulterated contempt. If it's all garbage, then why are you clutching my trash so tightly? Lin Luoxuan's expression petrified. He clearly hadn't expected such a blunt strike. What kind of delusions are you spouting? I haven't the slightest clue what you mean. It's fine if you can't comprehend human speech. Allow me to dumb it down for you. That Patek Philippe perpetual calendar, chronograph currently adorning your wrist. It's a legendary REF 1518. It was hammered down at a prestigious auction in Country F a year ago for a staggering 350 million. The winning bidder was a high-profile tycoon from China. In that heavy silence, regardless of whether he suspected I was bluffing, the moment Lin Luoxuan processed the astronomical value of that watch, the first emotion to surge through his system wasn't caution or a sense of self-preservation. It was sheer unbridled avarice. 350 million, no wonder he had felt such an instantaneous magnetic pull toward it. He tilted his wrist to admire the exquisite craftsmanship, his predatory mind calculating at light speed. He reached a ruthless conclusion in an instant. I haven't the foggiest idea what you're rambling about. This timepiece has been in my possession since day one. Now drag this lunatic out and incinerate his junk. In the streets of Gangcheng, his word was the ultimate law. Since the watch was strapped to his skin, it was his by divine right of theft. That legendary timepiece is now his Lin Luoxuan's by right of conquest. Regardless of who dares to question the origin, it belongs to me. I surreptitiously gripped the concealed weapon in my pocket, frantically calculating a viable escape route. But before I could even initiate a maneuver, the elevator doors directly behind our confrontation slid open with a sharp, resonant ding. A tall, strikingly elegant woman emerged from the lift, flanked by a formidable squad of over a dozen elite bodyguards. I stole a glance back and recognized her instantly, Lin Luowei. She is the powerhouse heading the Shen family's Gangcheng operations, and serves as Shen Qingyue's absolute top representative in the region. Sister Luowei over here, I'm right here, gazing upon the boy whose real-life features far eclipsed. Even his most stunning photos, Lin Luowei was momentarily paralyzed by his visuals. She surged to my side in a frantic blur, without uttering a single syllable, subjecting me to a meticulous head-to-toe inspection. Only after verifying that I hadn't sustained a single scratch, did she finally exhale a heavy, trembling sigh of relief. Rest easy, I'm perfectly fine. They didn't actually get the chance to lay a finger on me, though it was a dangerously close call. From the very second Lin Luowei materialized, Lin Luoxuan's predatory eyes had been fixated on her every move. But when he witnessed that her absolute first priority was fussing over my well-being, his complexion instantly soured into a dark, envious mask. Lin Luowei, what the hell are you doing here? What kind of sordid connection do you have with this brat? At the sound of his grating voice, Lin Luowei finally deigned to turn her head toward him. She hadn't anticipated in the slightest that the trouble I had encountered would involve a cockroach like Lin Luoxuan. Oh, it's just you, so what? You're nothing but a discarded daughter the Lin family threw to the wolves. Don't delude yourself into thinking your presence shifts the scales. Let me be crystal clear, Lin Luowei. Between you and this little punk, it only takes one command from me. To have you both crawling out of this city in disgrace. In truth, Lin Luowei and Lin Luoxuan hadn't crossed paths in an eternity. But regardless of how much time had drifted by, this pathetic half-brother of hers was still so remarkably dense it made her head throb. She marched directly into Lin Luoxuan's personal space, and beneath his stunned, bewildered gaze, she slowly raised her hand. Then she stood towering over Lin Luoxuan. Under his increasingly horrified stare, she prepared to strike. Then she unleashed a savage full-force swing. Crack! Lin Luoxuan's head whipped violently to the side, his cheek blooming into a crimson welt instantly. Lin Luowei flexed her finger, numb from the sheer bone-shattering impact of the strike. That slap. Consider it a mere down payment on the debt you owe me. Listen well, Lin Luoxuan. Not everyone in this world is a target you can afford to provoke. It took several agonizing seconds for Lin Luoxuan to register the sting. He clutched his throbbing face, howling like a cornered maniac. Who gave a gutter rat like you the audacity to lay a finger on me? You're a dead man walking. However, Lin Luowei's expression remained cold as she watched him lunge toward her in a blind rage, only to be effortlessly neutralized by her wall of bodyguards. Sister Luowei, you might want to clear the splash zone for a moment. My voice sliced through the chaotic screaming like a razor. Lin Luowei pivoted toward me, finding me steadying my phone, recording every sordid second of the ordeal. Spotting my maneuver, Lin Luoxuan's eyes widened, and he instinctively tried to stash his hand behind his back. Save it, your amateur hiding act is useless now. I've already secured the definitive footage of your theft, and I've meticulously captured every single one of your guilty faces, on camera in high definition. With a final tap, I uploaded the evidence directly to Shen Qingyue. Then I pressed the advantage. The treasures in my suite aren't limited to that timepiece. There are artifacts of astronomical value scattered throughout. If a single thread is missing or a speck of dust is out of place, you'll be paying for it with everything you own. Earlier, when I was vastly outnumbered, I was forced to play a cautious game of survival. But now the tide had turned. I marched past the fuming Lin Luoxuan and into my ransacked sanctuary, even though I had braced for the worst. The sight of my personal effects, strewn across the floor in a disrespectful mess, including the shattered remains of a jade bracelet, sent a physical jolt of agony through my chest. This was premium-grade Imperial Green, glass-grade jadeite. I kept the camera rolling, documenting the wreckage, until I verified that only the bracelet had been completely decimated. Only then did the knot of tension in my gut loosen slightly. Then I turned my icy gaze toward Lin Luoxuan, who was still being held at bay by Lin Luowei's ironclad security. In reality, you're the one who's utterly finished. Lin Luowei's expression mirrored that same murderous darkness. She was genuinely appalled that Lin Luoxuan could be this brain dead. How extensive is the wreckage in there? Catastrophic. We're looking at a few hundred million in damages. Upon hearing that astronomical, soul-crushing figure, Lin Luowei's jaw practically hit the floor in shock. Lin Luoxuan paralyzed for a fraction of a second, before his barking resumed with even more desperation. What kind of delusional garbage are you spewing now? How could a nobody like you possibly be hauling around a fortune in high-value artifacts? Despite his arrogant bluster, a wave of icy dread was beginning to drown Lin Luoxuan's gut. Too bad for him, I didn't deign to give him even a passing glance. Instead, I simply pivoted and sank into the plush sofa. Save your breath until the authorities arrive. Then you can shriek your lungs out all you want. What the hell is that supposed to mean? You actually dared to call the police. Lin Luoxuan tried to storm the suite the moment he heard that, but Lin Luowei's wall of bodyguards shut him down instantly. Lin Luowei, order your pathetic dogs to stand down. You'd better stop playing the fool before it's too late. Are you seriously trying to threaten me? Let me be crystal clear. In Gangcheng, the law doesn't just bow to any random outsider. Listen here, Shen, even if you're a literal celestial dragon, you'll crawl on your belly and keep your mouth shut in my city. I shot him a sharp, condescending side-eye, and offered nothing but a deadpan "oh." He opened his mouth to continue his pathetic rant, but I just lifted my phone and walked toward the window, granting him zero opportunity to utter another syllable. I answered with a soft "hello?" Hearing that my tone remained relatively composed, Gu Qinghan on the other end of the connection finally felt her frantic heart return to a normal rhythm. The police are already en route to your location, and I'll be stepping through that door in mere moments. Do not worry about a thing. I didn't even bother questioning how Gu Qinghan had caught wind of my situation so quickly. All that mattered was that the second I was in jeopardy, she was already tearing through the city to reach my side. The thought of her devotion instantly boosted my mood. You're almost here already. You truly do harbor quite the concern for me. Naturally, you are my one and only VIP guest. If I don't cherish you, who else in this world is worth my time? Only me. Yes, exclusively you. Gu Qinghan fell into a heavy, meaningful silence on the other end. Then she asked with unwavering intensity, and what about our future? The future will remain unchanged. Gu Qinghan came to a halt at the hotel's grand entrance. Gazing up at the towering structure before her, she took a long, steadying breath. A future only holds value if you are the one standing in it. Shenmo, I've arrived. Upon hearing those words, I suppressed a shudder from the sheer intensity of her line. Then glancing at the caller ID on my screen, a spontaneous laugh escaped my lips. Fair enough, I'll be waiting for you, Gu Qinghan. Simultaneously, Lin Luoxuan was at the threshold, shrieking at the top of his lungs. Lin Luowei, why the hell are you protecting this nobody? What do you possibly gain from causing such a public scene? Are you truly not terrified of the consequences from father when I report that you've betrayed your own blood for an outsider? Lin Luowei remained a statue of icy, unmoved indifference. Witnessing her apathy, Lin Luoxuan's face flushed a violent shade of crimson. He whipped out his phone, brandishing it like a weapon of intimidation. I'm calling father this very instant. This was once the ultimatum that haunted Lin Luowei's nightmares, but now she merely stood as my sentinel, looking down on him with disdain. Lin Luoxuan's call connected immediately. Father, my sister and some random punk are ganging up on me. Elder Lin's expression curdled into darkness on the other end. That insolent girl, Without bothering to investigate the facts, he barked in order for her to answer. Based solely on Lin Loxuan's pathetic whining, Elder Lin instantly branded Lin Luowei as the sole culprit. Sensing the tide turning in his favor, Lin Loxuan flashed Lin Luowei a revoltingly smug grin. He toggled the speakerphone on and thrust the device aggressively toward her face. "Father demands to speak with you." Lin Luowei stared down at the glowing screen. Even though she was fully aware the Lin family had discarded her, the mere vibration of Elder Lin's authoritative voice still sent a sharp pang of agony through her heart. Just as she wavered, hand trembling to reach out, I suddenly snatched the phone from the air. "Hey, old man, who exactly do you think you're talking to?" Hearing an unrecognized defiant voice, Elder Lin's brow furrowed as he issued an impatient command. "And who the hell are you supposed to be? Tell Lin Luowei to get on this line immediately, and tell me why exactly should I obey a single word you say? Can't comprehend human speech, can you? Still demanding to know on what grounds. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Daring to question why to my face. Who do I think I am exactly? Well, consider yourself finished. Moving forward, you can think of me as the Lin family's debt collector." At those words, Elder Lin froze in his tracks, a sudden chilling premonition washing over him. I had zero intention of entertaining him further, so I unceremoniously hung up the phone. Then I tossed the device back toward a stunned Lin Luoxian. Watching him scramble like a dog to catch it, I arched an eyebrow and let a mocking smirk play on my lips. The exact second the elevator doors hissed open, this was the version of me that Gu Qinghan witnessed. Her heart felt as though it had been struck by a physical force. She fixed her gaze intensely upon me, her mind becoming a complete silent void, as she instinctively closed the distance step by step. The moment I locked eyes with her, the grin on my face broadened significantly, and I casually beckoned her closer. That specific gesture was akin to a master summoning a loyal puppy. But strangely enough, Gu Qinghan didn't find it demeaning. Instead, she actually quickened her pace toward me. Out of everyone gathered in the hallway, Gu Qinghan and I were the only ones wearing smiles. The others, meanwhile, looked like they'd just seen a ghost. Gu Qinghan didn't spare a glance for anyone else, walking straight to my side with absolute purpose. "What kind of resolution are you looking for in this mess?" "Duh. Full compensation and a formal apology. But there's no need for you to intervene. I'll handle this reckoning personally." "Understood. I'll follow your lead." The woman's uncharacteristically tender expression made Lin Luowei doubt her own sanity. And she wasn't the only one spiraling. Even Lin Luoxuan, who had been so paralyzed by Gu Qinghan's arrival that his legs turned to jelly and he nearly hit the floor, had his eyes wide with absolute terror. If he had known I was backed by Gu Qinghan, he wouldn't have dared to provoke me in 10,000 lifetimes. As these thoughts swirled through the room, Lin Luoxuan tremblingly unbuckled the watch and extended it back to me with a shaky hand, desperately attempting to salvage the situation. "Mr. Shen, please allow me to return your watch immediately. Regarding today's misunderstanding, could you find it in your heart to just let it slide?" "Let it slide? I'm afraid that's going to be a monumental challenge. Perhaps you're unfamiliar with my reputation since I'm new to Gangcheng, but anyone who knows me can testify I'm the type to harbor a legendary grudge." I snatched the timepiece from Lin Luoxian's trembling hand, pinched it between two fingers with visible revulsion, gave it a shake, and then contemptuously hurled it right back at his chest. "Furthermore, I have absolutely no desire to keep anything that's been tainted by your touch." The moment those words pierced the air, Lin Luoxian's complexion drained into a deathly ashen pale. He opened his mouth to stammer out a pathetic defense, but one collision with Gu Qinghan's glacial murderous stare left him too paralyzed with terror to utter even a single syllable. In no time at all, the police swarmed the hallway. I surrendered the incriminating footage captured on my phone directly into the hands of the officer in charge. After they conducted a meticulous sweep of the crime scene and secured the hotel's high-definition surveillance tapes, the lead officer finally barked the order, "Mr. Lin, you and your associates are coming with us to the station." Lin Luoxuan looked like a hollowed-out ghost of a man. His hand hovered over his phone, trembling with hesitation for an eternity, before he finally buckled and dialed his father's number in despair. Once I concluded my formal statement with the authorities, I made my exit alongside Lin Luowei. Lin Luowei, ever the professional, refused to let the atmosphere turn awkward, and immediately offered a warm, radiant smile. "Mr. Shen, Sister Luowei, you're around the same age as my own sister. Please just call me Shenmo." "Shenmo then, tell me Shenmo. Where do you intend to seek refuge next?" A hotel might offer a facade of safety, but it's inherently vulnerable. Anyone with a shred of influence or a drop of power has 1,000 ways to breach a place like this. "Sis, is that residence you mentioned earlier prepared for my arrival?" "It's fully furnished and ready for its master." "In that case, I'll be moving in immediately." With that decided, I pivoted to lock eyes with Gu Qinghan. "Do you have pressing matters to attend to now?" It wasn't that Gu Qinghan's schedule was actually empty. It was simply that she felt the absolute highest priority in her universe was ensuring I was settled. Nothing on this earth is more vital than remaining by your side. As for Lin Luowei, she had literally abandoned a high-stakes business partner to sprint to my aid. Now that she witnessed Gu Qinghan standing as my unbreakable shield, Her lingering anxieties finally evaporated. She slipped me the address and promptly departed to salvage her workday. After a quick exchange of farewells, she vanished back into the city. The moment Lin Luowei was out of earshot, Gu Qinghan dropped a pointed observation. Lin Luowei is currently a high-level asset for the Rongxian group. I gave a non-committal nod, offering a simple "I know" without further detail. Sensing my lack of interest in providing a backstory, Gu Qinghan let the investigative thread wither and signaled toward her sleek vehicle. "Let's move. I'm personally overseeing your relocation." "You're actually going to haul boxes yourself. Do you find that particularly surprising? You're the legendary high-stakes CEO Gu. Isn't manual labor a bit beneath your illustrious pay grade?" 2 hours later, prosperous grandeur. The pinnacle of luxury in the most exclusive villa district in Gangcheng. As I navigated toward the specific coordinates Lin Luowei provided to locate my new sanctuary, Gu Qinghan came to a sudden contemplative halt. "Sis, is that estate you brought up earlier ready for immediate occupancy? It is pristine and waiting for you. In that case, I'm moving in this very second." With that settled, I pivoted my focus back to Gu Qinghan. "Don't you have a kingdom to run or fires to put out?" It wasn't that Gu Qinghan's schedule had magically cleared. She simply deemed ensuring my comfort as the most vital mission on her agenda. "Nothing in my empire is more critical than remaining at your side." As for Lin Luowei, she had burned a major business bridge just to sprint to my rescue. Seeing that Gu Qinghan was now acting as my personal guardian, her lingering anxieties finally dissipated. After our parting words, she retreated to handle the fallout of her absence. Once Lin Luowei had departed, Gu Qinghan voiced her curiosity again. "Lin Luowei's ties to the Rongxian group are quite significant." I offered a curt nod. "I'm aware," I replied, keeping my cards close to my chest. Realizing I wasn't going to spill any secrets, Gu Qinghan wisely chose not to pry any deeper. She gestured toward the car with a subtle tilt of her chin. "Come on, let's get your life moved in. You're seriously handling the logistics personally. Is that a problem for you? You're the high and mighty CEO Gu. Using your hands for my luggage feels like a criminal waste of talent." 2 hours later, prosperous grandeur. The most prestigious and opulent residential enclave in Gangcheng. Following the exact building coordinates Lin Luowei had sent, I finally tracked down my new sanctuary. Gu Qinghan came to a sudden contemplative halt. Noticing her hesitation, I tossed out a casual, "What's the holdup? Would you believe me if I told you the estate next door is mine?" "What a delightful stroke of luck. I'll be in your capable hands then, new neighbor." I offered my hand toward Gu Qinghan with a smirk. Gu Qinghan reacted with lightning precision, interlocking her fingers with mine. "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Shen." As she finally withdrew her touch, she surreptitiously gave my palm a lingering, suggestive squeeze. Meanwhile, Lin Luochuan never dared to imagine that, even after Elder Lin burned through his elite high-level connections, freedom remained light years out of his reach. What's more, once the legal team unraveled the full gravity of the situation, the only path to salvation was a desperate private settlement. But that required me to personally grant the green light. Afterwards, coldly rejecting a barrage of meeting requests from the Lin family, I finally reached my breaking point. Accepted a briefing from my own counsel 3 days later. By the time I stepped into the designated meeting room, the high and mighty group inside had been stewing for hours, their patience frayed to a breaking point. Elder Lin sat like a stone statue, his withered face etched with pure unadulterated disdain. Before I could even settle in, he began his interrogation. "Name your figure. What's the ransom to set my son free?" I strolled to the head of the mahogany table and took my seat. I slowly savored a cup of tea, letting the silence hang before answering. 1 billion. Mr. Shen, isn't that demand slightly beyond reason? I leaned back into the leather chair, snatched the evidence photos from my lawyer's hand, and scattered them across the table in front of Elder Lin. "Hardly. It's your measly offer that's pathetic. If you can't even cough up 1 billion to save your heir, why are you posturing like a kingpin in my presence? Do you have any inkling how much the watch your son pilfered is worth? Are you aware of the astronomical value of the jade he shattered? Do you possess the slightest clue what my other missing items are valued at? 1 billion is the friends and family discount I'm offering. And that's only out of a shred of respect for the fact that you're Sister Luowei's biological father." It wasn't as if Elder Lin hadn't glanced at these photos before, but he hadn't deigned to take them seriously until now. Now he was backed into a corner and had no choice but to comply. Tremblingly pick up the appraisal reports to verify the carnage. The deeper he delved into the documents, the more his face turned ashen. By the time he finished, Elder Lin was white-knuckling the stack of reports, until the paper was completely mangled and bent out of shape. He desperately recalled Lin Luochuan's frantic side of the story, and began to bark a desperate defense. "There is no physical way you lost that much inventory. My son only confiscated a single timepiece from you, and the only casualty was that solitary jade bracelet." "Is that so?" says who. "If I declare my property missing, then it is missing. You should be aware that all my high-value possessions possess official customs entry records from the airport. Since they have vanished into thin air, the liability naturally falls on the man who illegally breached my sweet Mr. Lin." "Without a doubt. If Mr. Lin can provide ironclad proof that he didn't pilfer them, I suppose I'll just have to swallow the loss. But Elder Lin was cornered by the cold, hard truth. Lin Luoxuan couldn't prove a damn thing. The break-in was an indisputable fact. The ransacking, the destruction, and the blatant theft were all recorded facts. But even if he could scrape together $1 billion, he wasn't about to incinerate his fortune just to bail out Lin Luoxuan. After taking several jagged, heavy breaths, Elder Lin finally forced a nauseatingly fawning smile onto his face. Why don't you enlighten us, Mr. Shen? As to exactly how you wish to settle this delicate matter, Lin Luowei is your biological daughter, is she not? At the mention of her name, Elder Lin's heart skipped a violent beat. Yes, that is correct. I've heard that you and she share a remarkably close bond, Mr. Shen. Our bond is exceptional. I hold Sister Luowei in very high regard. Elder Lin immediately exhaled a massive sigh of relief. He rubbed his weary face, instantly shifting gears to play the friendly relative. Well, since we're practically kin, why don't you grant Luoxuan his freedom? Simply as a personal favor to Luowei? The moment those words left his lips, no one in that room could have predicted that I would actually offer a slow nod of agreement. Even Elder Lin's jaw hit the floor in pure disbelief. But a heartbeat later, I sharply tapped the table and dropped the hammer. For Sister Luowei's sake, if you surrender the shares her mother bequeathed to her, I will slash the settlement amount by half, officially drop all criminal charges, and let your precious heir walk free. Inconceivable, that represents 10% of the Lin Group's total shares. Listen closely, old man. I think you've misunderstood the situation. I am not here to negotiate with you. I am here to dictate terms. I'm not here to negotiate or play games with you. This is a final notice, not a conversation. Either you settle this debt according to my exact demands, or Lin Luoxuan trades his designer suits for a prison jumpsuit. Of course, I'm well aware that Lin Luoxuan alone isn't enough leverage. But what if I up the stakes and have the Rongsheng Group sever every single tie with your Lin family? Those words struck Elder Lin like a massive sledgehammer to the skull. He stood there, trembling for an eternity before finally snapping back to reality. What in the hell is that supposed to mean? You likely didn't foresee this when you coerced Sister Luowei into cooperating, did you? Right now, every single one of your Lin family's projects is fueled by Rongsheng's capital. Have you ever stopped to consider the fallout if Rongsheng pulls the plug? Every ounce of blood, sweat, and resources your family has poured in will be incinerated and flushed down the drain instantly. I'm betting you've already run the numbers. You just gambled on the fact that Luowei would never actually betray the Lin family. After all, this family's legacy was built on her mother's life's work. Plus, in your archaic worldview, Sister Luowei is nothing more than a convenient pawn working for Rongsheng. She doesn't represent the entire weight of the group, or so you thought. You assumed, no matter how capable she is, she couldn't summon a real storm. After all, these joint ventures are actively generating massive profits for the Rongsheng Group. Why on earth would Rongsheng ever want to kill their own golden goose? In a way, your logic wasn't entirely flawed. Sister Luowei truly wouldn't have the heart to destroy her mother's legacy. But I'm built differently. The Lin family's survival means absolutely nothing to me. At worst, if your pathetic family empire collapses, my Rongsheng Group will simply prop up a new Lin family from the ashes later. After all, Lin Luowei carries that surname too. I didn't even deign to glance at Elder Lin as he rose in a blind, impotent rage. I calmly poured myself another cup of tea, the picture of indifference. Who the hell do you think you are? I've already given you my credentials. I am the most ruthless debt collector your Lin family has ever encountered. Aren't you terrified that I'll drag Rongsheng down into the abyss with us? Hearing that desperate attempt at a threat, I straight up burst out laughing at the absurdity of it. Why should I harbor even a shred of fear? If Rongsheng decides to play this lethal game with your Lin family, at most, it's like losing a single fingernail to cauterize a wound. Do you really think I'd lose a wink of sleep over that? Actually, I didn't even need to spell it out for him. Elder Lin understood the brutal logic perfectly. When he manipulated Lin Luowei into the partnership, he was banking on the distance gambling that Rongsheng's HQ was thousands of miles away. He thought as long as the cracks in the partnership remained subtle, Rongsheng's higher-ups wouldn't even notice the rot happening here. But he never anticipated a wildcard like me crashing the party, let alone that I'd be the one stepping up to anchor Lin Luowei. At that realization, his knees buckled and he nearly tumbled right out of his chair. After an agonizing moment of silence, Elder Lin braced his trembling hands against the table to steady himself. He finally accepted that he could sacrifice Lin Luoxuan to the wolves, but he absolutely could not witness the Lin family empire crumble. So he submissively bowed his head in defeat. Wait until I return, and I will personally ensure Luowei comes over to finalize the share transfer contract. Please, I beg of you, show some mercy. Release Luoxuan and let the Lin family off the hook. Business is business, old man. Don't you dare forget a single cent of my compensation. Elder Lin nearly coughed up blood from sheer frustration, but he could only force a pained smile and a subservient nod. After giving him a dismissive wave, I watched as Elder Lin turned with a stiff wooden posture and retreated with the robotic steps of a broken man. Finally, I let out a cold, sharp laugh and pulled out my phone. Hey sis, it's officially handled. From the other end of the line, Shen Qingyue offered a calm, satisfied hum of approval. I was just about to terminate the call, but then a thought struck me and I pressed her. Sis, you're unusually invested in Sister Luowei's personal affairs. Are you hiding something major from me? Following a long, heavy silence with no reply from Shen Qingyue, I called out sis again, my suspicion rising. Suddenly, my sister started stuttering and spinning excuses, which only confirmed my gut feeling that those two were plotting something. Listening to the hollow dial tone after she hastily hung up, I curled my lip in a smirk and rose to exit the private suite. However, the moment I reached the door, I collided with someone I absolutely never expected to see again. Before I even had a chance to dodge the encounter, the person marched straight into my personal space. What? My eyes aren't playing tricks. It really is you. I can't believe you actually have the nerve to be in Gangcheng. No wonder Xiao Jiajia was coming up empty no matter how hard she searched. Luonan tried to clap me on the shoulder with fake brotherhood. I swiped his hand away immediately, then physically pushed him back. Save the act. I have actual business to attend to. I'm out of here. Oh, come on now, Shenmo. Even if you and Xiao Jiajia had a nasty falling out, we're still supposed to be bros, right? Hearing that, I leveled him with a piercing icy stare. Friends? And then, Yasid, did you just leak my precise coordinates to Xiao Jiajia? Is that your twisted definition of what friends do? Don't delude yourself into thinking I didn't spot you. You were over there frantically typing away like a madman. I don't even need to use a fraction of my brain to deduce exactly who you were messaging. Wait, hold on, you've got it all wrong. I was merely under the impression that there might be some lingering friction between you and Xiao Jiajia, and I simply wanted you two to settle the score. Besides, not to be that guy, but face reality in our elite social circle. Who among us is actually a saint? Xiao Jiajia remained devoted to you for so many years. Honestly, she's already gone above and beyond. And when you strip away the drama, nothing tangible actually occurred between her and Lu Li. Was there truly a need to pull this dramatic vanishing act? Do you have any inkling how distraught she's been over you lately? She's wasted away so much, it's actually painful to look at her. Luonan's tone grew increasingly sanctimonious with every word. At this display of hypocrisy, I let out a sharp, frigid laugh. What are you, Xiao Jiajia's self-appointed guardian, going to such pathetic lengths to defend her honor? What if you end up bedridden and paralyzed one day? Must she kneel by your bedside and scrub away your filth too? How can you spew such venomous garbage? Oh, so you think your little sermon sounded pleasant? At the very least, I'm speaking the unvarnished truth. Every time you part your lips, the stench is so foul it turns my stomach. Who among us is actually clean in this circle? That's your degenerate circle. Definitely not mine. Just because you're all irredeemable trash. You expect the rest of the world to wallow in the same gutter. Trash belongs in a landfill out of sight. Keep your distance from someone of my caliber. Don't even dream of breathing the same air as me. Having finished my demolition, I turned and walked away. Behind me, Luonan was so consumed by rage his eyes were bulging. He jabbed a trembling finger at my retreating silhouette, prepared to unleash a torrential flood of curses. But I didn't grant him the satisfaction of an audience. Finally, he sucked in a ragged, desperate breath and returned to feeding intel to Xiao Jiajia. While Luonan was maliciously exposing my location, Zhang Yueyao, tasked with ensuring my security, was absolutely relishing the drama she overheard. With a look of pure unadulterated excitement, she extracted the audio clip from the hallway's hidden surveillance, clip that masterpiece and drop it into the group chat immediately. And then, she proceeded to spam a relentless barrage of thumbs-up emojis. Zhang Yueyao has never harbored respect for a single soul in her life. But she has become an absolute disciple of Shen Mo's lethal tongue. Less than 60 seconds after the post went live, Zhao Yan successfully identified the individual mentioned in the recording. Upon seeing this, Zhang Yueyao's expression instantly turned to ice. Her fingers flew across the screen, quick unsend it now. Though Xiao Yan was utterly baffled by the sudden panic, he complied immediately and retracted the message. Gu Qinghan happened to enter the chat at that precise moment, pausing as she surveyed the digital chaos. I already saw it. Faced with the inevitable, Zhang Yueyao abandoned all hope of deleting the file. She attempted to laugh it off with a hollow, nervous text. By then, Xiao Yan realized he had walked into a minefield, scrambling frantically to perform damage control. Exactly, Sister Han, no need to worry. With Shenmo's razor-sharp personality, he'd never let anyone trample over him. The group chat was drowning in a flood of incoming messages, yet Gu Qinghan maintained a heavy, deafening silence. Zhang Yueyao instantly felt an ominous chill settle in the air. She tapped onto Gu Qinghan's profile to initiate a private conversation. But despite typing out a mountain of explanations, Gu Qinghan remained cold and unresponsive. The woman stationed in the surveillance room looked absolutely grim, fantasizing about slapping some sense into herself right then and there. She just couldn't resist being so extra. Why did she feel the need to broadcast an audio clip regarding Shenmo to the entire group? Zhang Yueyao was sinking into a bottomless ocean of regret. Meanwhile, within the confines of her office, Gu Qinghan replayed the file. As she absorbed the name, I kept repeating like a mantra. A heavy cloud of melancholy began to settle over her. Xiao Jiaji. Gu Qinghan whispered the name under her breath. her finger tapping a rhythmic, restless beat against the mahogany desk. She couldn't shake the feeling that the name sounded hauntingly familiar. Beyond that nagging familiarity, the detail that gnawed at Gu Qinghan most was the woman's true identity, specifically her status as my former lover. Even with the X prefix, the mere thought made her incredibly bitter. But what fueled Gu Qinghan's irritation even more was the crushing realization that she didn't even possess the formal right to be jealous of a ghost from the past. She pulled up my profile once more and stared at the empty chat box for an eternity. Finally, she released a long, weary sigh into the quiet room. "I've cleared my entire schedule. Don't you even miss me yet?" she whispered to the shadows. Then, in the very next heartbeat, I witnessed a sudden notification materialize. Within the confines of our private chat, "You nudged Gu Qinghan?" His brilliant mind just leveled up +1 in intimacy. She stared at the digital trail in horror, frantically attempting to unsend the accidental prompt. But my predatory message had already infiltrated her screen. "It seems nothing has officially evolved into something interesting." Gu Qinghan let out a faint melodic sigh of defeat. "I merely intended to inquire if your workload was finally cleared." Bereft of any other plausible deniability, Gu Qinghan was forced to use Auntie Li as her tactical shield. I studied her response deliberately, choosing to provoke her. She was being uncharacteristically transparent. I could vividly visualize that stoic professional mask on Gu Qinghan's face as she typed those words. Then I glanced at the ticking clock and fired back a teasing, "Is that really so? In that case, precisely how much do you crave my presence?" Gu Qinghan's side of the chat went silent for an eternity. She wore a mask of absolute gravity while grappling with this inquiry. She was so deeply immersed that she failed to register her assistant, pounding rhythmically on the office door. Only when she regained her composure did she grant them entry. The assistant pushed the door open with practiced ease, prepared to rattle off the remaining high-stakes schedule. But Gu Qinghan silenced them with a sharp gesture. "First, I require your professional consultation on a critical matter." She adjusted her posture, sitting bolt upright, her expression more formidable than during a hostile takeover. The assistant was gripped by a sudden surge of dread, assuming some global economic catastrophe had just been unleashed. After meticulously structuring her thoughts, Gu Qinghan pressed forward. "Hypothetically, and I stress this is purely a theoretical scenario, suppose you confessed to a romantic interest that you desired to see them, and they countered by asking how much you truly desired them. What is the optimal response, honestly, CEO Gu?" It was Mr. Shen who cornered you with that question, wasn't it? I genuinely feared we were facing a corporate disaster. Considering how intensely formal you were being, I never would have dared to imagine that our untouchable CEO Gu would actually admit to missing a man. Come on. Cease this nonsense immediately. Very well, CEO Gu. In my professional opinion, I believe Mr. Shen. I never explicitly stated it was Shen Mo. Following a brief, heavy silence, Gu Qinghan decided to abandon the facade and simply own her truth. The assistant cleared her throat, preparing her expert analysis. The assistant barely managed to suppress a mischievous grin. "Drawing from my extensive experience as a veteran of the dating scene, I suspect Mr. Shen threw that specific question at you, precisely because he knows your shy nature makes you vulnerable. He is most likely just teasing you for his own amusement." Upon hearing this cold analysis, Gu Qinghan pouted like a dejected child, a wave of stinging disappointment washing over her. She had truly believed I was testing the depth of her feelings. So was it really nothing more than a playful prank? In my professional assessment of the situation, there is a massive probability that it was. However, if the uncertainty is eating at you, CEO Gu, why not just confront Mr. Shen directly? The ultimate red flag for any couple is playing these mental guessing games. If there is a friction point, lay your cards out on the table. Address the underlying issue head on. If it's meant to be, great. If not, you sever ties and move on. That way, you won't be haunted by agonizing what-ifs. The assistant offered that final piece of wisdom quite casually, but Gu Qinghan took those words straight to heart. She became so profoundly lost in her own thoughts that she failed to notice when the assistant finally slipped away, back on my end. I was genuinely perplexed when Gu Qinghan's reply failed to materialize, but the moment I returned home and checked my screen, I saw her confession, really want to. Just 4 simple yet incredibly heavy words. I began typing a response. As I threw myself onto the sofa and sat cross-legged. "You agonized over your screen for that long, just to deliver a 4-word sentence. I'm definitely getting scammed here." Reading that teasing jab, Gu Qinghan marched purposefully into the garage. As she ignited the engine, she scrutinized my message, wondering if there was a hidden layer of meaning behind my text. A heartbeat later, she replied, "I will find a way to make it up to you." Seeing that bold promise, my heart actually skipped a violent beat, but I chose not to fire back another reply. I tossed the phone aside and retreated into the bathroom for a steaming shower. A few moments later, I snatched my phone and headed downstairs to scavenge for a meal. But at that exact moment, Gu Qinghan's name flashed across my screen as she called. "I'm standing right outside your front door." I froze in shock for a split second before swinging the door open. The woman standing there was still clad in her sharp professional attire. I snatched my phone and bolted down the stairs, The moment the door swung open, there she stood. It was clear she had raced here straight from the office. Her cheeks wore a faint crimson flush, and her breath hitched slightly as I locked eyes with her. Guking Han took an instinctive, purposeful step forward. I managed to track down some legendary Gangcheng street delicacies. Think of this as the first installment of making it up to you. Alright, let's see what you've brought to the table. Would you mind letting me step inside first? The wind out here is starting to get a bit unruly. The instant she finished her plea, I stepped aside to clear the path. I only have these basic disposable slippers on hand, so you'll just have to settle for them for now. I retrieved a fresh pair of disposable slippers from the depths of the top cabinet. Seeing that I wasn't at all bothered by her unannounced visit, she suddenly felt an intoxicating surge of relief wash over her. This egg waffle spot is an absolute Gangcheng institution. The sweetness is perfectly balanced, never cloying, with a flawless crunch that gives way to a cloud-like center. Go ahead, take a bite. I've secured some succulent roast duck and grilled skewers as well. Truth be told, I haven't had a single morsel to eat all day. Well then, I appreciate the feast. Just as we settled in to tear into the spread, I held up a hand to pause the momentum. Hold on, are you in the mood for a drink? And a drink, what exactly are we talking about? Homemade fruit wine. I brought a stash with me from Jin City. However, her mind didn't fixate on the alcohol itself, but rather the specific geographical detail I dropped. This was the very first time I'd revealed a glimpse of my origins. Guking Han's eyes ignited with a sudden brilliant spark. She interpreted my mention of Jin City as a monumental sign that the fortress around my heart was finally beginning to crumble. The more she dwelled on it, the more her pulse quickened with excitement, though she maintained her ironclad poker face with expert precision. A few moments later, I returned to the table brandishing a heavy sealed jar of wine. During a retreat to the countryside a while back, I mastered this craft under the tutelage of a local elder. It's a specialized mulberry infusion. This is the premium stuff. You're about to experience a revelation. I expertly pried the cork loose with a satisfying pop, and the intoxicating rich bouquet of fermented berries flooded the room. But as I filled her glass to the brim, a shadow of hesitation flickered across her face. Back at home, my family monitored me like hawks, so I was strictly forbidden from having more than a single sip. Now that we have this rare opportunity, share a drink with me. Absolutely not, no way. I'm merely concerned that you'll end up completely hammered. Guking Han possessed a formidable alcohol tolerance, so she wasn't remotely worried about her own sobriety. She was simply an expert at reading people, and she'd bet anything that my tolerance was absolute garbage. I offered her a playful pinky promise. Then I raised my glass defiantly. It's perfectly fine. It is physically impossible for me to get drunk. Guking Han found herself with no other choice but to dotingly clink her glass against mine. She remained anchored by my side as we feasted and drank. An hour drifted by in a blur, and the third brimmed glass of potent wine in my hand was now bone dry. Seeing me hungrily reaching for the ceramic wine jar again, "Hey, that's enough. Stop drinking immediately. Any more than this and you'll be utterly wasted." With a face flushed a violent crimson, I doubled down. "What on earth are you mumbling about over there? How could a legend like me possibly be intoxicated? I actually gain more clarity with every single drop I consume." As those words left my lips, I snatched Guqing Han's hand that was obstructing my path and began pushing it away with all my might. Wait, why won't this obstacle budge an inch? I'm clearly exerting every ounce of my physical strength. Whoa, this hand is actually remarkably exquisite. As I sat there mesmerized by it, I suddenly extended my index finger and gently traced the delicate curves of Guqing Han's hand. Then under her visibly shocked and paralyzed gaze, I began tracing the intricate outlines of her soft fingertips. She whispered softly, "Are you truly this far gone already?" She tried to surreptitiously withdraw her hand while I was distracted, but my eyes were predatorily locked onto it. I snatched her hand back into my grasp and glared at her with raw impatience. "Stop moving. I'm not finished looking yet." Hearing this sudden command, Guqing Han exhaled a deep, weary breath, feeling a massive headache beginning to throb. Fine, there's no need for further investigation. This guy is 100% blackout wasted. Didn't he brag about having a legendary tolerance? Was he really taken down by a measly 3 glasses? She sighed and attempted to reclaim her hand once more, only to realize she couldn't move it even a fraction of an inch. Clearly, even in this drunken state, a part of me was still on guard against her. A low, raspy chuckle escaped my throat as I pulled Guqing Han's delicate hand toward my cheek. Then I tilted my head and nuzzled hungrily against the back of her palm. Guqing Han, witnessing this raw display, Guqing Han's breathing instantly became shallow and heavy. She surrendered her hand to my whims, lowering her head to take a long, silent sip of her wine. A heartbeat later, I barked out another sudden command, "Swap hands." That one grew too warm. I've grown tired of it. Guqing Han obediently surrendered her other hand to my grasp. I traced the lines of her palm with meticulous care, confirming that this one met my intoxicated approval as well. Guqing Han remained frozen in a deafening silence, but the very instant my skin brushed against hers, the woman who was desperately clinging to her composure felt a violent crimson flush erupt across her cheeks. She exhaled a shaky breath, watching me descend again to toy with her slender fingers. Suddenly flooded with a sense of relief that my predatory focus wasn't locked directly onto her, but in the following heartbeat, my lingering gaze drifted away from her hand, and I stared into her eyes without so much as a blink. Gu Qinghan, your face is glowing crimson. You must be absolutely hammered. At those words, Gu Qinghan instinctively shielded her eyes with her free hand. Say what? Do you have even the slightest inkling which one of us is truly drunk? My eyes ignited with a sudden spark. What did you just say? Take a look. Is there truly such an incredible deal on the table? Under Gu Qinghan's paralyzed gaze, I rose to my feet. A second later, I was looming directly in front of her. In that moment, Gu Qinghan tensed up, her breath hitching in her throat. But seeing my hazy, unfocused vision, she quietly abandoned her last shred of restraint, surrendering to the intoxicating scent radiating from me. If I leaned forward even a fraction of an inch, the tip of my nose would be grazing hers. For a fleeting second, she actually felt the urge to close the gap. Fortunately, her cold rationality clawed its way back just in time. However, my drunken boldness only intensified as I fumbled blindly around her neck until my fingers finally found the curve of her earlobe. The moment I made contact, Gu Qinghan felt her self-control nearly shatter. She gritted her teeth, tilting her head sharply to dodge my heat. He desperately attempted to coax me back to reality. Cease this reckless playing around. What? I literally can't hear a word you're saying. Yes, your hearing is perfectly fine. No, it's absolutely not. I glared at him, feigning a fierce intimidation. Just as Gu Qinghan assumed I was on the verge of a tantrum, he noticed my hungry gaze wandering down the bridge of his nose, lingering on the curve of his lips, and then descending even further. Finally, my predatory focus locked onto a very specific spot. Gu Qinghan shivered, visibly unnerved by the intensity of my stare. He bolted upright with the most explosive speed of his life. Hey, do not even think about doing anything insane. I blinked at him, wearing a mask of total bewilderment. I scratched my head in confusion. What has you so terrified? I'm not terrified. I'm simply not going to let you take advantage of me. Besides, didn't you just explicitly invite me to take a look? When did I ever? Right in the middle of his protest, Gu Qinghan suddenly realized with a jolt that he had actually uttered the word look moments earlier. You clearly misheard me. My words didn't carry that kind of implication. But the second those dismissive words left his mouth, my expression crumbled into a look of pure heartbreaking grievance. Gu Qinghan found himself powerless against my emotional display. Seeing me nearly stumble and lose my precarious balance, his heart hammered against his ribs for a long, tense moment. He finally waved the white flag and stepped back into my space. Fine, you have my permission to touch. But understand that certain areas are strictly off limits. It was his own tactical error. Why bother trying to logic with someone who is completely obliterated? Seeing him finally cave, I offered him a satisfied, condescending pat on the shoulder. Gu Qinghan, I'm ready to go to sleep. Hearing this declaration, Gu Qinghan froze dead in his tracks. Sleep? How exactly do you intend for this sleep to happen? I need to wash my face and brush my teeth, then collapse onto the bed and shut my eyes. A short while later, Gu Qinghan trailed behind me as I ascended the stairs. We marched straight into the primary guest bedroom. When he finally caught up and crossed the threshold, he found me clutching a brand new toothbrush, grinning like a maniac. Then I snatched up a stack of fresh towels and plush bathrobes, shoving them into his arms one by one. Then I made my exit looking smug and perfectly satisfied. Gu Qinghan stood there, paralyzed, cradling an armful of unopened toiletries, utterly incapable of articulating the chaos of his current emotions. At that realization, Gu Qinghan suddenly felt a premonition that she might be inextricably bound to me for the rest of her existence. My voice drifted in from the hallway once more. She rushed out to investigate, only to find me mid-ritual, brushing my teeth with a mouth overflowing with foam. I tilted my head lazily and mumbled a distorted good night in her direction. Good night then. A few quiet minutes later, Gu Qinghan stood like a silent guardian by the bedside, observing me as I drifted into a deep slumber cocooned in the heavy quilt. She reached out, extinguished the light, and quietly retreated from the room. However, Gu Qinghan didn't return to the sanctuary of her own home. She chose instead to stay in the guest chamber adjacent to mine. She left the doors to both our rooms propped wide open. She was acutely aware that those in a drunken stupor often risk vomiting or suffering a fatal choking hazard in their sleep. The mere thought of leaving me unsupervised left her utterly unsettled. Fortunately, I remained in a peaceful trance until the sun rose the next morning. She carefully arranged the artisan porridge and restorative hangover soup upon the dining table. Then she scribbled a quick note for me before departing for the corporate office. I finally stirred around noon, still reeling from the chemical warfare of last night. I stumbled downstairs toward the kitchen for hydration, my eyes still heavy with sleep. That's when my gaze landed on two sleek thermal containers resting on the table. I knit my brows in utter confusion, speculating on their contents. Approaching cautiously, I gave them a thorough, skeptical inspection. Once I had satisfied myself that they weren't explosive devices, I pried the lids open, releasing the intoxicating aroma of freshly prepared savory porridge. I instinctively scanned the silent room for any sign of life. The fragmented memory of sharing a late-night feast with Gu Qinghan flickered in my mind. But what happened after, as I struggled to reconstruct the timeline? Chaotic scenes from the previous night began to flash violently through my consciousness. Once the horrifying reality of exactly how shamelessly I had handled Gu Qinghan set in, I froze in absolute paralyzing shock. Was that debauched individual truly me? The person who was so brazenly, unapologetically touchy-feely was actually myself? I threw myself face first onto the sofa, letting the cushions absorb the impact of my mounting shame. I felt as though my entire social reputation had just been incinerated. My latent desire for Gu Qinghan had clearly reached a breaking point where even my subconscious was staging a full-scale offensive on my behalf. How in the world am I supposed to look her in the eye now? Perhaps my only salvation is to feign total amnesia. But would a woman as sharp as Gu Qinghan ever fall for such a pathetic ruse? While I was drowning in my own hesitation, suddenly the sharp chime of the doorbell shattered the silence. I dragged my soulless, hungover husk off the sofa and drifted like a ghost toward the entrance. A mere heartbeat later, the instant my eyes landed on Gu Qinghan standing there, my brain short-circuited and I slammed the door shut in a panic. The moment I realized the gravity of my blunder, I looked like a man ready to embrace the sweet release of death. That reflexive panicked reaction was a dead giveaway that my memory of last night was crystal clear. Even through the thick barrier of the door, the sound of her melodic laughter reached my ears. I sucked in a jagged, desperate breath and resignedly swung the door open once more. I'm fully aware that I crossed the line last night. Just give me the lecture and get it over with. I lowered my head in a gesture of absolute defeat and apologized. I braced myself, eyes clamped shut, waiting for a sting or a scolding. But the expected blow never landed. Instead, the weight of a warm hand gently ruffled my hair. I snapped my eyes open in utter shock, only to find Gu Qinghan wearing a playful smirk. Exactly how did you cross the line? And what makes you so sure I wasn't an enthusiastic participant? Before my brain could even begin to process that bombshell, Gu Qinghan's face suddenly zoomed into my personal space. Excuse me. Do you have any inkling of what I was tempted to do when you were breathing down my neck last night? I can't explain why, but the second she posed that question, my gaze betrayed me, dropping unconsciously to her lips. I might not have known Gu Qinghan's hidden desires, but I was painfully aware of my own primitive urges. Sensing the heat of my thoughts, she gracefully retreated, dropping back onto her heels with a smirk. As she brushed past me, she left me with a cryptic parting shot. My desires are an exact mirror of yours. Hearing that, my mind became a chaotic mess of question marks. I scrambled to catch up with her. What desires? What exactly are you thinking right now? Wait, how could she possibly read the impure thoughts I just had? Unfortunately, Gu Qinghan had no intention of clarifying. Her gaze drifted toward the dining table, noting the still-sealed hangover tea and the untouched porridge. Did you literally just crawl out of bed? I was dying to press her for a straight answer, but I realized that would make me look pathetic and desperate. So I bit my tongue and forced myself to let the subject drop. Then I coolly offered her a terse in response. I watched as Gu Qinghan naturally glided into the kitchen, efficiently gathering the necessary utensils, and began expertly serving the porridge and hangover soup. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This woman was far too skilled at domesticating me. Instantly, my mind flashed back to the pristine dining table I encountered upon waking. My guilt spiked exponentially. Last night, did you happen to sanitize the entire dining room by yourself? Indeed, I just handled it while I was at it. Come now, eat your fill. Don't dawdle. This woman's meticulous care and foresight were on an entirely different plane. She isn't merely pursuing me with romantic intent. She's practically nurturing me like her own son. Seeing that Gu Qinghan had already pulled out my chair, I walked over and submissively took my seat. I took a restorative sip of the smooth, velvety yam porridge. She had just produced her phone and cast a lingering glance my way. Aren't you joining me? I've already dined at the corporate cafeteria. Then why on earth did you even bother coming over if you've already eaten? I realized the heavy implication of my words halfway through the sentence. I clamped my mouth shut just in the nick of time. But Gu Qinghan wasn't about to let such a golden opportunity slip away. I merely wanted to verify if our young Master Shen had graced us with his presence yet. I simply haven't had much on my plate lately, so I've succumbed to a bit of a lethargic streak. I don't make it a habit to sleep until noon every day. Witnessing my defensive reaction, Gu Qinghan couldn't suppress a soft melodic chuckle. She felt that even if I remained completely unproductive, the mere act of observing me would uncontrollably send her mood into the stratosphere. Because Gu Qinghan laughed so brazenly, I shot her a thoroughly dissatisfied glare, then accelerated my pace to finish the meal. But the very moment I set down my spoon, I saw Gu Qinghan rising to resume her cleaning duties. Whoa, hold it right there. I'm seriously not some total incompetent bum. I'll handle it. It defies all logic for a guest to perform chores. I marched the thermal containers and bowls to the kitchen, rolled up my sleeves, and began scrubbing. Out of the corner of my eye, I noted that Gu Qinghan had shadowed me at some point. She was leaning against the kitchen doorframe, staring at me intently. I felt a prickle of awkwardness wash over me. Do you truly lack faith in my domestic capabilities? Not at all. Then why the hell are you staring at me? I was simply afraid you might find the task boring. Oh, I see. How thoughtful. Since when did our illustrious CEO Gu pivot into a professional conversationalist? Does the pay actually meet your standards? Gu Qinghan didn't even flinch. She actually played along, wearing an uncharacteristically thoughtful expression. She watched me meticulously place the bowls into the sterilization cabinet and pivot back for the thermal containers before replying, "The pay is adequate." But I wouldn't exactly call it a gold mine. After dropping that line, she gracefully offered me a paper towel. The primary objective is ensuring the client's absolute satisfaction. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Shen? I wiped the lingering moisture from my hands, projecting an aura of cool, calculated detachment. I'd rate the performance as merely mediocre. Only mediocre, that's a harsh critique. Pray tell, what exactly did you find so mid about it, Mr. Shen? The woman standing before me possessed a truly lethal silhouette. My eyes ignited with a momentary spark of admiration, but I snapped back instantly, feigning a mask of total composure. You're far too inhibited. A professional chatter should be a bit more evocative, you know. More, what exactly? I haven't the slightest clue what you're implying.